Oklahoma State. That is happening on Saturday, and our man Aaron Hogan is in Dallas already, getting ready for the game. He's got some friends hanging out at Terry Black's barbecue, so why don't we get Aaron on the line as well? Aaron, how you doing today, brother? You ready for the show today?
Man, welcome to Dallas downtown, scene of the crime. About 2.5 months ago, when 2 months ago, when the Longhorns played Oklahoma, we were here at Terry Black's Barbecue in Deep Ellum, right on Main Street, east downtown Dallas. And yes, joined by Jerry Hamilton of Inside Texas, Bobby Burton, Inside Texas. They just wrapped up a live stream to their audience all over the country, all over the world, getting ready for the Longhorns' first appearance in the Big 12 championship game since 2018, looking to win it for the first time since 2009. Jerry, how are you, buddy?
I'm great, man. It's just ready to get this game going tomorrow. It was interesting. Did our YouTube live stream this morning from the Walmart parking lot with AT&T in the background, the stadium, and the Oklahoma State 18-wheeler that takes all their football equipment in front of us in the Walmart parking lot. So, and it was about 40 degrees, 45 degrees. So we got the morning going great, but you can sense the excitement just walking around, driving around. I'm expecting a good 65,000 Texas fans in AT&T tomorrow.
Yeah, it's sold out. I was talking to a good buddy of mine who's trying to get a ticket. They didn't have one yet. So there's plenty available on the Oak State side. Not as many obviously the Longhorn side, a little tougher, but it is a special occasion. Patrick Davis back at the studio. We are at Terry Black's Barbecue here in downtown. Terry Black's right here. We'll come on up if you're out here. Come over and meet Terry himself. He's been to every Texas game since the 60s, I believe. So Terry, a big Longhorn fan.
Food's unbelievable here, by the way. Unbelievable.
It really is.
It's almost like the Diet Coke's better because of the food's being so good here. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we also want to thank our friends at One Source Gas of Central Texas there, my buddy Richard Streever and his team. If you have compressed gas needs for your business, whether they be CO2 or nitrogen or anything for your beer taps or your veterinary clinic, your doctor's office, let him be your guy and his team at One Source Gas. They are our presenting partner here for our coverage today and tomorrow for pregame coverage, 3 hours over there in Arlington. Get your details on where we'll be. Also, thanks to my friend Travis Tyndall and the team at Hayes City Store and Ice House and their new location, Travis and Tamara's Taste on Main in charming downtown Buda. Great steak and seafoods, but on the casual side. So we'll tell you about them as well. But Patrick, gearing up for this game, obviously Longhorn's a heavy favorite, and you have to take care of business. And I don't know if you heard this morning, Patrick, we talked to Quan Cosby. And Quan was on his way up here. He was dropping names on me there, Jerry. He was like, I'm going to the Hartzell L-type party tonight. I'll be looking for McConaughey. I'm like, man, now give me a ticket, man. Get me up in there. But I thought Quan said something that was really insightful for Longhorn fans that are like teeth gnashing about Florida State and the playoff. And Quan was like, you know what? Just be present. Enjoy the championship, win the championship. If everything happens the way it should, it'll be fine. As Sark said, the dust will settle where it's supposed to settle. But being the first time in 13 or 14 years, it's been a long slog of mediocre, bad football for quite a bit of it. Savor the opportunity to play for a championship, Jerry.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And being the last Big 12 championship, I think just adds to it. Look, we were saying, Rod and I have been talking about it a couple times this week. It feels like the last 4 games for Texas have kind of been the real revenge tour, almost personal in a way for Sark. I think, TCU in 2022, Texas had 199 yards of offense, probably a low for Steve Sarkisian in his coaching career. They avenged that loss. Then Iowa State on the road after the 30-7 ugly loss in Ames 2 years ago. Bo Davis is famous that I thought was great bus rant. I think even though they lost to Kansas after that was where this program started to change. I think Bo Davis said what needed to be said there. Texas avenged that loss. And then you had Texas Tech because Brett Yormark added to it after Joey McGuire talked about it after Texas Tech won in Lubbock last year. Texas more than avenged that loss. Now you have Oklahoma State, who was a bad loss last year. Mike Gundy just gets Big 12 Coach of the Year. Yes. After losing to South Alabama 33-7, Steve Sarkisian wins at Alabama by 10. Nobody's ever done that against Nick Saban since he's been at Alabama. And Steve Sarkisian doesn't win Big 12 Coach of the Year. Only team in the hunt for the playoffs in the Big 12. I think this would be the final piece of that Sarkisian personal revenge tour, Aaron.
Yeah, Jerry Hamilton, and let's not forget, he can take it personal in his wife L'Oreal. $50,000 bonus in his contract.
Oh, there's that. Too. That's going to buy some nice suits for next year.
Yeah, it cost him $50,000, but they, as we said all year, I know Rod has said it a million times on our show and with you guys, leaving jumping out of the conference like Oklahoma is. You've heard from the deputy commissioner. We've heard from the commissioner. It's bon voyage for them. You're not going to get any breaks. You're not going to get the benefit of the doubt, and that's probably fine. I thought the Texas volleyball team kind of got hosed on some of the conference honors as well, being the defending national champions that they are. So that's the AFO thing, right? The F around and find out deal that the Longhorns are running with, which if it's there, use it, and the players certainly are. Sark's leaning into it, even though he won't say it publicly. Keep the receipts. Put a chip on your shoulder. That's fine.
Look, one of the masters of all time with that was John Calipari.
Yes.
I mean, he had his 39-1 Kentucky team thinking it was them against the world. I mean, look, and he had the most talented basketball team in college in a long time with Anthony Davis, and they were favored to beat everybody. And he still had them thinking it was us against the world. And I think Sark has done, with help from the Big 12 commissioner and other teams, knowing that these Texas kids, knowing you're going to get the best shot from everybody else, it's been pretty good of Sark to get a us against the world mentality with this team this year, and they've really taken it to the field here recently. And I expect Texas to play their most physical football game of the year tomorrow.
Agreed. Against Oklahoma State, who beat them last year in Stillwater, the game I was in attendance, and it was a real frustrating game. Texas like they were going to run away with it early, 31-17, and then, like so many times last year, collapsed in the fourth quarter, and Oak State got the win. But there's another receipt to keep. Patrick, it does feel like this Texas team, maybe coming out of the Quinn Ewers injury, to have that happen in the Houston game on the road when things were going south anyway, to survive that game, get through the K-State game with Malik Murphy, get Quinn Ewers back, and still survive the TCU game. Feels like that Iowa State game, and then the 4 quarters they played against Tech. Second half at Iowa State, 4 quarters at Texas Tech, Patrick, the best they've played. And if they can carry that momentum with an extra day off, having played Friday night into tomorrow's game, could be a long day for Oklahoma State if the Longhorns can bring that intensity for 4 more quarters and win a championship.
Yeah, and I'll point out, too, when we talk about getting the team ready and what you said with Quan, trying to get the team to just be focused and not worry about the other games. I thought it was interesting. He said in his press conference yesterday, or his media availability yesterday, when he was asked about how are you keeping the team in the right mental space, and he talked about watching a movie, and then he kind of mentioned, I let the players deal with it. And it's a difference we've seen with this Texas team this year, that the leadership on the field and the leadership on the sidelines of the players, they're the guys who are passing around let's go look at Brett Yormark. They're the guys who are going to show you all the bulletin board material, and Sark can go handle the game plan. He doesn't have to bring that. He can just bring normality to this week and kind of treat it like a regular week. And the players on the sideline, they know what's at stake, so they're going to come out and bring their best game. And so when you see what they've kind of done with Iowa State and what they did, especially against Texas Tech, that I think they're starting to really believe that the goal that they've been working for, that a lot of these guys that have been here, and the seniors who were there with Tom Herman and never really felt like they were a national championship team in the last 2 years, not even close really, but you're close to the Big 12 championship. I think they feel it now, and the players that have been here are leading the way of, hey man, this is not an every year thing. This is not something you can take for granted. So we need to go out there and every single play, and whether it's special teams or it's a third down in the fourth quarter, you got to get that big play.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, because, look, their mission all year has not been to win the national championship. Yep. That'd be great. It was to win the Big 12. And as we talked about very beginning, first week, Patrick, Jerry, there's so many guys on this team that'll never play a game in the SEC. Right. This is it for them, right? This season is their season. If they end up in the college playoff, that would be awesome. They get a month to prepare for it and take a deep breath. But this has been the focus, the mission, keeping the receipts, revenge tour, as you just said, but also winning this championship. So I do think it'll be easier to focus on this game for them. And I also think it's a benefit that it's the first game of the day.
Yes, 100%.
Because, I know Rod Babers has talked with us about their 2001 Big 12 championship, where he firmly believes, maybe even guys like Chris Sims got a little tight because Mac Brown told them, hey, guys, if we win this, we're going to go to the national championship.
They knew running out on the field Tennessee had lost.
Yes, and they tightened up. Rod talked about it. They didn't play loose. They played like this was the most important game. They didn't play within character. The Longhorns hit the field tomorrow not knowing anything. Obviously, Oregon and Washington are playing tonight, but that's a play-in game. Right. If Oregon or the winner, that's going to be in.
Their winner's in
from the West Coast, so that doesn't control Texas. So they can, they won't know, and I think that's good. They can play loose. leave it all on the field and then see how the dust settles afterwards.
Try to make their statement tomorrow, play the best game they can, get that W, hoist that trophy, let Brett Yormark hand that trophy to Steve Sarkisian, which I think would be the perfect way to end for Texas football's time in the Big 12. But then add more pressure to FSU.
Yeah.
With a win. I mean, you may have a first-time starting quarterback for FSU tomorrow, Aaron.
Yeah, Tate Rodemaker could be out for that game. They go down to a third-string freshman because of a concussion protocol situation. He's been limited all week. And, we saw it last year in Dallas with the Dillon Gabriel situation. Yep. You got to pass the protocol with an independent neurologist. And if you don't, Oklahoma would have liked to have Dillon Gabriel playing last year in that game, 49-0. We know it's an important game for Mike Norvell, but that's why they have an independent neurologist to make those calls. So we'll keep an eye on Tate Rodemaker, who, even if he plays, I know this, Jerry, Louisville has a really good pass rush.
Yes.
Louisville's got excellent ends. They got good defensive tackles, and Jeff Brom's done a good job. They can get after the quarterback without blitzing,
yes.
And that's whether it's Rodemaker or the freshman, that could be big advantage Louisville in that game.
I think pass rush on both sides is so key tomorrow. Because here's the thing I think we know with Jeff Brom and Louisville. They're going to score more than 15 points. That's all Florida could muster up, Billy Napier could muster up last Saturday at home against FSU. Jeff Brom's going to score more than 15 tomorrow. I think the magic number for him is about 24 to 27. If they can get that many points on the board, then that means that if it's had success running it and throwing it, but pass protection, handling that FSU pass rush is huge tomorrow. I think if they do a good job with the FSU pass rush, I think Louisville's going to score points. If the Louisville can get to 24 to 27, the big question, Aaron, is can FSU get to 28?
Yeah.
Because it didn't look like it last Saturday against Florida.
Yeah, they had under 275 total yards.
140 yards midway through the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and they were and they understood they could and that was not a good Florida defense, by the way.
No.
The whole staff got fired.
Right.
Pretty much for Billy Napier. So there is a chance, but for Texas, Patrick, don't worry about that. Focus on the mission. Finishing the mission. That's what Sark has been focused on, and it does feel like, Patrick, if styles make fights in the boxing term, this is a good style for Texas. This is especially the way Oklahoma State came out of their bye week. They were more of an RPO system. They were trying to spread it around a little bit more, running three different quarterbacks in there. And Mike Gundy said, you know what, that's not going to work. They went to a power running game essentially with Ollie Gordon,
scheme.
And that plays right into what Texas wants to do. It does feel like Texas Tech all over again because Texas Tech did the same thing midway through their season with Joey McGuire. So Patrick, stay on the mission, and that's what we're doing here at Terry Black's Barbecue in downtown Dallas. Great location, about 60 degrees, perfect day. So if you're making your way up here, fighting through some traffic to get here, come see us. It's on South Main. Patrick, this place is. I'll bring you some barbecue, Patrick.
There you go.
And it might be a couple days old when I get back there because I'm coming back tomorrow or later this weekend. But you can still enjoy it, I promise you.
Yeah, and I think Jerry touched on a funny point too. You talk about Brett Yormark having to hand that trophy over. If you don't think every player has talked about laughing at that moment, then you know that every player in the locker room is like, I want to give Sark that moment because they screwed him out of the Big 12 Coach of the Year. He's 11-1.
Yep.
He didn't get that. I want to see Brett Yormark have to hand him the trophy. And so that's another added benefit, another piece of bulletin board. And, man, Iowa State and Texas Tech can tell you bulletin board material does not help. That has been a bad thing for them the last 2 weeks against Texas. That defensive line, Tavondre Sweat coming out. Aaron, you just mentioned that the defensive line, what they've been able to do this season. And, Taj Brooks still got 95 yards, but he held him under 100, which only one of their other team did, and that was because they were so far behind they only got 19 carries. So if you're able to hold Ollie Gordon to 2 or 3 yards an attempt, then you're winning this game walking away because I don't know that Alan Bowman's going to be able to consistently pick up first downs.
Yeah, agreed. And, and they don't have dynamic wide receivers either. I mean, Brennan Presley, probably their best receiver, littler guy, 5'8", 185. This isn't a Mike Gundy team that has that Des Bryant type player on the outside. James Washington that are just, oh my gosh, this guy's a crusher on the outside. That's typically the philosophy for Gundy, right? Get a really good quarterback who can sling it, you can run the rock, and then you have a dynamic wide receiver that demands doubles.
And Aaron, I think you're going to see Texas press.
Yeah.
You run a lot of press coverage tomorrow.
I do too.
Now, the linebackers are key because I think you're going to see Brennan Presley a little bit more from the slot, right, which Texas Tech didn't have with Miles Price. But obviously Oklahoma State will have that at disposal. But I think Texas is say, all right, Oklahoma State outside receivers, beat us deep because that's what Texas did against Texas. And we'll see if Oklahoma State has any more success than Texas in that Texas Tech in that regard. I think the other thing is, guys, defensively, it's a huge game for the edges and outside linebackers. Ollie Gordon's a cutback runner. Now, they run a lot of pull two power game, but they also a lot of first step downhill in the run game. But he's got that cutback vision. So the edges for Texas have to be very technically sound tomorrow while also playing upfield enough. I mean, it's a fine line. And then the outside linebackers, I think, have very key tomorrow because Mike Gundy's going to run screens. Yeah. Texas Tech didn't work Texas in the screen game. Kansas State did with the tight ends. I think you're going to see Oklahoma State tomorrow try to hit Texas in the screen game in a multitude of ways. Running back screen, wide receiver screens. I think you're going to see Gundy try to slow down that Texas pass rush and test those outside linebackers. And if they have any success there, then Oklahoma State's going to have Texas on their heels a little bit. We'll see what happens.
Agreed. Another guest we had this morning, Patrick, on the morning show was Sam Mays, who played offensive line All-American at Oak State in the early 2000s, and he's really on top of this team. And he said, you know what, the offensive line isn't even that good.
Right.
They just have a really good running back, and they try to get to the second level and mug your linebackers and let Ollie Gordon make things happen. He's that good. He's a pretty realistic guy. He said he thinks Ollie Gordon is the best player on the field, but then Texas has the next 10.
Right.
It's kind of the conversation. And, we could have a debate about Ollie Gordon versus X-Man or Tavondre or some of these guys.
I tend to agree with him.
If you give them Ollie Gordon and then Texas has the next 10, Patrick, that's a pretty good advantage to start with for Texas, and especially the way they play run defense. And I agree with you. The screen game is something to watch tomorrow. With Texas's pressure, it's something Tech probably should have gone more to. Quick screens. We saw K-State do it very well in their comeback. Those little tight end screens, middle screens. You can do that against a Texas, as Rod would call it, a fast flow Texas defense, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to have to try everything you can. I think they're probably going to try, throwing the short passes over the middle too. That's kind of what they did against Oklahoma when they weren't able to get the run, and it pushed guys back off. It took away the pass rush, got the ball out quick for Alan Bowman. I think you could see some of that, but I think the key to the game is to get the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible. Try not to let him get into his own head and be able to make mistakes, because once you're letting him think he can make mistakes, he's 10 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Not a great ratio you want to have for your starting quarterback going into a championship game. So if you can see that, they're going to try and get the ball and use Ollie Gordon as many ways in the screen game, in draws and whatever else they can to try and get the ball out of Alan Bowman's hands as quickly as possible. The problem is if Ollie Gordon can get 4 or 5 yards of carry, then you only really need Alan Bowman to get you another 4 or 5, and you keep moving down the field. That's when you can start changing the game. Because what we saw against Tech was the field position never really shifted in Tech's favor, and they were able to keep going by the way of kicking field goals instead of going for it on 4th down and getting good punts. They were able to keep the field position in Texas' favor for most of that game. I think you need to keep that kind of philosophy against Oklahoma State and not give them up some ground, because once you get into that red zone area and once you get into where they can start kicking field goals, momentum can shift quickly.
No question about that. And you mentioned field position. If the Longhorns bring anything close on tomorrow morning at 11 to the 3 hours of special teams football they played last Friday night, it's going to be a long day for Oak State, because after the game, Joey McGuire, the coach at Texas Tech, said that the thing that surprised him the most, he said, if you'd have told me before the game that we were going to get that dominated in the special teams, I would have told you I was going to be shocked, because Texas Tech had been a very good special teams unit this year. He thought it was one of their advantages, or someplace they could take an advantage on Texas where there are very few. And Texas, returns a kick for a touchdown, blocks a punt, 5 field goals. Field position was in their advantage the whole day. If they bring that phase at that level, with Jeff Banks and Joe DeCamillis, I don't know that Oak State has a chance to be in this game.
You know what the best compliment Gundy gave Texas this week is Monday press conference, because he got like 4 questions about Byron Murphy and Sweat. How are you going to deal with those guys? How are you going to deal with those guys? And when he finally got sick of the question, he was like, none of you guys are talking about special teams with Texas. They are plus 300 in punt return yards this year. He said that's an exceptional stat. And, Aaron, that took me aback, because I hadn't looked at punt return plus-minus rankings in college football. I know Xavier Worthy's really good. I know Ryan Sanborn's really good. And I know Texas has great gunners and covers punts really well. But I didn't know exactly where that number was. But that's a sign of respect for Gundy to that Texas special teams, and especially Xavier Worthy. And I think Mike Gundy would rather punt it in the stands tomorrow than punt it to Xavier Worthy.
On a fast track where we just saw the Cowboys.
Yes.
Cowboys have scored 40-plus in 4 straight games on that field. It feels like it's playing fast this year. X-Man for sure. And that plus 300, and that's great coverage too. They're not giving up much in the punt returns with Ryan Sanborn, and they're gaining yards every time with Xavier Worthy and flipping that field position, as Patrick said. And anytime you can get Sark out near midfield to start a drive, you know he's coming with tempo.
Yeah.
That's when he gets into his bag, gets into his rhythm with his play calling with this Texas offense, and it's become a huge phase for the Longhorns. And that's why Sark has talked about the versatility of this team all year. They can beat you defensively with goal line stands, special teams, and offense. We'll get into it. I know Patrick coming up, but we got to get into Quinn Ewers. You know, this game was kind of a nightmare for him last year in Stillwater. He learned from it. It's the 3-high defense, and we'll talk more about that coming up. But I know you need to get to your Patrick's big fat poll so we can get the listeners involved with a poll. What are we going with today there, PD?
Yeah, 512-447-3776 is the text line. Let's hit the sounder.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
All right, well, first of all, just send in your score predictions. We always ask for score predictions on a Friday for Texas Oklahoma State. And I want to know who's going to be the biggest impact player for Texas on Saturday. Who is your big impact player? Tell us on the text line, 512-447-3776. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more with Aaron Hogan, Jerry Hamilton, Bobby Burton, all the guys hanging out there at Terry Black's Barbecue there in Dallas. When we come back here on the Sports Complex in the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn on a Friday afternoon. It is a 5-1-2 Friday playing local music you can go check out around town this weekend. This is Souls Extolled. They're playing a show tonight at Friday at the Flamingo Cantino. Kairos is going to be on that bill. Vibing in the Submersible is going to be a fun show tonight over at Flamingo Cantina with Souls Extolled. I know Souls Extolled. I know he just posted up a video of him playing Eyes of Texas. He's a big Texas fan, so give him a plug here on the Sports Complex on a 5-1-2 Friday. Being joined today by my man Aaron Hogan. He is out at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas getting ready for the big game coming up this Saturday morning. So we're hours away now. We are officially hours away. So it is getting to be time that now Texas fans, which this happens a lot in championship time, where you're really confident all week. You feel good. You go, the matchups seem to match up, and then as you get closer, you're like, but he is Gundy. It is Gundy, and we know Quinn Ewers has struggled against Gundy in the past, and so I think it's going to be a tricky situation, but we've seen Quinn improve against the 3-high 3-down. Sark has improved his play calling against it, but you guys are out there at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas. What's the mood in Dallas right now?
I think confident, and, we were here for Texas OU, and the Longhorns were confident, too, and they lost that football game where Brett Venables had his team ready to play. We know Oklahoma had focused on that game the entire offseason and kind of made it their mission statement to get back and beat Texas after getting blanked the year previous. But, this one's coming pretty quick. This game wasn't on the schedule when the season began, and kind of rightful that Texas gets to see Mike Gundy one more time on the way out to try to give him that receipt. But, Jerry, from the coaching side, Mike Gundy has won 7 of the last 10 and 9 of the last 13. What is it that Mike Gundy can do? You mentioned screen game.
Yeah.
What can they do to throw some wrinkles at Texas? And obviously, if you'd like to make Quinn Ewers have a game like he did last year in Stillwater. Wind won't be up. It's going to be in a controlled environment.
That's a big difference, right? And Quinn's a year older. Yeah.
And he's played in that building before, playing some state championship games with South Lake Carroll. But what can they throw at Texas to? It's a mismatch talent-wise.
Right.
How does Mike Gundy get into his bag?
Look, I think the biggest thing Mike can do outside of just the chess match that they'll have within the game, which that kind of has to unfold, right, is condense the game as much as possible. I really believe this. I think Mike Gundy's going to be perfectly okay with a few 1-yard runs because the clock's running and he's not in 2nd and 14 and he's not in 3rd and 13s. If he can stay ahead of the chains, he will be patient with the run game in this game because that means the clock is running for him. If he can keep his defense off the field as much as possible, then I think he feels like he's got a chance in the fourth quarter. If he can get it to the fourth quarter with a chance to win against a team that's much more talented, I think he's going to be a happy football coach. And I also think he's going to be hoping, Aaron, that Texas feels the pressure and turns the ball over early.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the key, right? I mean, but look, here's the thing about Quinn. I know we're going to talk about Quinn's completed 73.6% of his passes in Big 12 play.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a massively big number, especially with a downfield passing game, which Texas has. They maybe not be throwing it over the top as much, but they throw long opposite field hashes. That's the way Sark is stressing the field vertically this year, is long opposite field 15-yard comebacks, 18-yard comebacks, 20-yard routes. So that is the way he's stressing the field. So Quinn has completed 73.6 in a downfield passing offense. That's a big number. I think what Gundy's got to hope is Texas has some nerves, turns the ball over. But I think the key for him is to be patient with 1- and 2-yard runs and just look up at that clock and watch it run and condense that game as much as possible. That's the best. I think that's the best way to attack this Texas defensive front is you're also keeping them on the field. And then I think the other thing is if they go to a mass substitution tomorrow and they bring in 5, 6, 7 backup players, that's when I think you're going to see Gundy get it going quick. Because that's had success against Texas when they mass substitute.
I was just thinking the same thing. I mean, you watch enough film of Texas, and you know when Sweatin, and for whatever reason, they take Sweat and Murphy out together, and they bring in Trill Carter and Vernon Broughton. When you see those guys get them on the field, you get whatever you have. That's when you run with it, Patrick, and try to go quick, try to manufacture, and don't let them sub because a lot of times if the team starts moving the ball, they'll come back in with the ones as they get closer to the goal line. But you're right. I think compressing this game, Patrick, is big. Texas, the red zone offense is still an issue. You want to be able to force Bert Auburn to kick field goals, keep yourself in this game. And remember, they were just in this game 2 years ago. It's a different roster, but they fell behind big time to Dave Aranda and Baylor in that game. I think it was 21-3.
Yep.
The quarterback, Spencer Sanders, was playing terrible, and they fought their way back in that game, and they almost won it. If they could have scored from the goal line, they would have won the Big 12 championship 2 years ago. So credit to Mike Gundy to be in this game for the second time in 3 years. But those would be the game. That would be the game plan. Shorten the game.
Yep.
Use the new clock rules outside of the 2 minutes and force some field goals and see if they can create some big plays. I do like his stat, though, Patrick, about Pat Quinn, yours. He has been really good in Big 12 play when healthy and really good in the second half of football games this season.
Yeah, and I mean, if we look at what he did against Iowa State, where it wasn't the perfect weather that it's going to be at AT&T Stadium, he was a little bit more hurt than he is going to be in this game. And he looked like he was doing fine against a defense that has given him problems in the past. So I think that Sark is getting that next step into it. Quinn has now seen it. He's had time to process. We know Quinn, one of the things that was really frustrating with him last year, where a lot of people got upset, is it just takes him a while to process a lot of this information. His footwork is much better this season. His reading of defenses is much better this season. And a lot of it, I think, just kind of took an off season where he had to take a couple days off and get better. Now he's had a break in the season, too, where with the injury, where he kind of got to process a little bit more. And I think he's been playing pretty good football. He looked really good against Tech, but of course, everybody looked good against Tech. I think that this is a game for Quinn to show out as well, that he was left off of the all Big 12 teams. And he knows that, look, I get that I'm not in the Heisman. I'm not going to New York for the Heisman, but you're going to tell me I'm not one of the best 2 quarterbacks in the Big 12 right now? I think he's got something that he'd like to prove in this game as well. Sark's going to play conservative for a lot of it because you can't turn the ball over. I think, you don't ever want to let Oklahoma State get back in this game. They've shown that they're the cockroach of the Big 12 and they will not die. So they're not going away. So you have to, if you don't turn the ball over, you don't give them short fields by going for it on 4th down and give them momentum. You just kick your field goals and kick it off and use that great kickoff return, that unit. If you're able to do those things against Oklahoma State and don't let the door open, it makes them have to change their game plan and go away from Ollie Gordon and go into their weaker points. And that's what you want to do with Sark, is you don't have to force their hand by trying to, make the big sack up front. You want to force their hand by just not letting them ever get back into the game, and then they have to throw the deep passes. And that's where your safeties, who are playing better in the second half of the season, get a shot to go make some interceptions and really put this game away.
A little bit of the game within the game. Texas, a lot this year, has asked JT Sanders to pass pro against some really good players. Nelson Caesar got Quinn against U of H. Colin Oliver's as good as Texas has faced, other than Dallas Turner in that regard. Colin Oliver, I think Texas has to be mindful of that. They can't ask JT Sanders to go one-on-one with Colin Oliver in pass pro. Colin Oliver not only has 6 sacks, he has 4 forced fumbles. He's a guy who can create turnovers. So a little game within the game there is, how is Texas going to ID Colin Oliver? Are they going to ID and pass pro him with JT Sanders, which they've done a lot this year from the tight end position, or are they going to go away from that in this game? I'm interested to see what they do.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Jerry, you're with me on the Inside Texas watch along, the game watch, and we talked about that a lot. I mean, even against Iowa State early when those 4 sacks came, Patrick, against Quinn, at least 2 of them were JT Sanders' assignment. He just got beat in pass protection, and then you saw Gunnar Helm come into the game and help out. But JT Sanders can be a big factor in this game, stressing those linebackers and stressing the middle of the field. I heard you talking on your live stream about Central Florida, who beat this team 45-3. This is why people were mad that Gundy beat Sark for Coach of the Year. He's got a loss to South Alabama this year, and he's got a loss to Central Florida. Two blowout losses. But what did Central Florida do with Gus Malzahn that maybe Texas can replicate?
Well, one, they have quarterback run game, so we have to throw that out. But I said it in the Tech, and I thought this was interesting because UCF, other than Texas, is the only team in the conference who can do this, because Oklahoma just doesn't have the running back run the ball well enough. They have 2 receivers who are probably going to play on Sundays in some capacity. Then they have a running back who's a really good player. Then they have a tight end. Randy Pittman's a freshman. They have another tight end. But those guys are athletes. They can actually stress you down the field a little bit. So when UCF had 485, 490 yards in Lubbock, and that was right after UCF had 580 yards, something monstrous number at home against Oklahoma State in the rain, by the way. I said, okay, if Tech's going to struggle with that because Texas is that on steroids. They have Worthy and A.D. Mitchell and J.T. Sanders and a number of running backs and a big offensive line. So if Tech struggled with that and Oklahoma State struggled with that, Oklahoma State's sitting there thinking, man, how do we defend Texas? We couldn't defend UCF, and Texas has better players at those positions and can put stress on the defense in different ways than anybody else can in this conference. That's what Texas has going for them tomorrow.
Agree with that. And, that was a flat performance, obviously, by Oak State coming off the Bedlam emotion. And it was in the rain, but, man, it was ugly. And Texas can take some of that, Patrick, and run with it.
And their run game got shut down. Ollie had 25 for 50.
Well, to me, and again, I know it was flat, Patrick, but that's the recipe to take and really dominate this game is play with a lead, which takes out Ollie Gordon out of the game. That's what happened with Texas Tech. Taj Brooks became a non-factor because they were trailing so much when it was 23-7 at the half. So those are the recipes. Those are the game plans. Or like this one, Patrick, that police are now investigating an Oklahoma State fraternity for a dead Longhorn that was found outside of a frat house this week. I don't know if you saw that. That is,
I saw that. Yeah.
Maybe they can try those tricks or something like that. I don't know. What a ridiculous thing that is.
Yeah, not a great story to come out before, and I'm sure it's one of those ones that's not really bulletin board because you understand that probably 99% of that football team also thinks it's dumb and didn't want it to happen. It's not something where it's a football team actually saying it. It's some idiots that are at Oklahoma State, which maybe is a little bit redundant, but we can say that. I think that Texas, it's if you just put your foot on the throat, like that's what they did against Texas Tech that they didn't do against Kansas State, that they didn't go against TCU. They went for it on fourth downs to try and put the death knell instead of just kicking field goals. They kept they didn't necessarily play field position. They just played to, if we take this final blow, we'll get them. And look, you could be up 45-0 on Oklahoma State at half, and they'll go try and put up 35 in the second half and try and screw up your college football playoffs. So you have to play this game just kind of foot on the gas the whole time and take what's given to you at these points. But I agree, and I think when we talk about J.T. Sanders, you hope he stays in these games, but we saw early in the season too, and especially after Oklahoma, and he was a little bit banged up in the ankle, and he wasn't blocking at all with that ankle injury.
Right.
Gunnar Helm got a lot more playing time. And I think, if you see that J.T. Sanders is kind of struggling to get the block, Gunnar Helm's probably going to come in a lot more. And, I don't think Sark really has an issue with, put another guy who can't change the game like J.T. Sanders can, but he can also, they're not game planning for him to go across and pick up 8 yards across the middle, and that's what Gunnar Helm can do. So, I think there is something that Texas, what really separates Texas at this point of the season is that they've progressed a lot of these guys that are not even getting a lot of playing time to be better. And when you put in that, okay, well, now our second string tight end is better than any tight end you have on your roster. And can you stop us if, one of our guys, you get through one, we've got another guy right behind him. That's something that Texas going into this game, I think gives them a pretty good edge against Oklahoma State, that Oklahoma State needs their guy. They need Ollie Gordon to be dominant, or else like we talked about with UCF, that once you stop Ollie Gordon, everything kind of falls apart for this Oklahoma State team because they don't have the pieces to make everything else go.
That's right. And that's another thing Sam Mays told Nick and I this morning. Just don't let Oak State hang around and be within 7 in the fourth quarter. That's what Oklahoma did. Oklahoma put 500 yards on this team. They shot themselves in the foot a little bit with some turnovers, and in the end, Oklahoma State was within a touchdown at home, was able to rally. That's where their kind of mental toughness shows through, and then Gundy can get in his bag a little bit. If you play with a double-digit lead and make them abandon Ollie Gordon a little bit, that is the way you really stretch this game out for Texas. We're live at Terry Black's Barbecue in downtown Dallas. I want to remind you we're going to be live, and Jerry's going to join me tomorrow as well over at Jay Gilligan's over in Arlington. We'll be right about a mile away from the AT&T Stadium tomorrow morning. We're here in South Dallas because we love the barbecue, and Terry Black is such a great host of us when we come out here, so it's a perfect place to eat and have some fun on a Friday night. But we'll be in downtown Arlington, and Patrick, I told the folks all week long, Jay Gilligan's has a shuttle. So if you don't want to pay the Jerry Jones parking freight,
which is up to $125 in spots.
Oh my gosh, you can come and hang out with us at Jay Gilligan's. They're going to open at 7:30 tomorrow. We'll go on the air at 8. And we'll be cranking, and they'll have food and drinks and pregame and everything going on, and then you can shuttle right over to the stadium, and they'll bring you back. Your car will be there and safe, and they do it for every Cowboys game. They were doing it last night for the Seahawks victory, and so he told me on Thanksgiving, Jerry, that they shuttled almost 3,000 people to and from Jay Gilligan's and back. So that's where we'll be tomorrow morning. There'll be a lot of Longhorn fans there, guaranteed. So come on out. We'll be there tomorrow. And again, thanks to One Source Gas of Central Texas, our presenting partner, of course, and Hayes City Store and Ice House and Taste on Main for helping us get up here and be a part of this championship for the first time in a while. Pretty darn cool. I need to say one thing, Patrick, to my friend Travis at Hayes City Store. I just heard that recorded spot. I think I said wood fried pizza. Sorry about that.
Wood-fried pizza. Well,
it's wood-fired pizza. Wood-fired pizza. I cut the spot yesterday and said wood-fried pizza. They don't have wood-fried pizzas at Hayes City Store. They have wood-fired pizza.
By the way, I love Hayes City Store. One of my best buds from high school I grew up with lives down in Wimberley. He took me to that spot a couple of years ago. I love that place.
It's awesome.
I'd be there all the time if I lived in the area.
Oh, we do, and it's not fried pizzas. It's wood-fired pizzas. Let me apologize on that. But speaking of the fires, Patrick, we were here in October for Texas OU. It was about 90-something degrees, and we were sitting next to these huge, smokers that they have here, the pits here at Terry Black's Barbecue, and it was like we were sweating.
I smelled like barbecue for a week and didn't mind.
Yes. Well, today it's about 60 degrees, and it's getting cooler, so it kind of feels good to sit right next to the fire. But that's where we are, Terry Black's Barbecue today. Jay Gilligan's in Arlington tomorrow, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Feeling some confidence. We'll also, Patrick, I know, get into the other big games. Longhorns need to worry about theirs, but there's a lot to be dealt with coming up tonight and then tomorrow on Championship Saturday. I know you'll get into that Cowboys win as well last night, which was fun. Listening to a lot of Dallas radio driving in. They're fired up about Dak Prescott being in the MVP race and winning that game last night. So lots to talk about. It's a fun Friday.
It's a fun Friday. We also got Texas basketball was in action last night, and there's some things to talk about, I'm sure, in that game. It did not go exactly to plan, so we'll get into all of that. And, of course, the text line, guys, 512-447-3776, asking you for your score predictions and who will be the biggest impact player for Texas on Saturday. Send us in that text line. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll get to some of your text messages and keep the show rolling here on the Sports Complex and the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn. It's a 512 Friday where we play bands from here, right here in Austin, Texas, that you can go see live around town this weekend. This is Stalefish. They're playing tonight at high noon. High noon, you can go check out Stalefish playing tonight. Some more rock and roll for you on a 512 Friday. We're going to rejoin Aaron Hogan and the guys out at Terry Black's at the top of the hour, but I want to get to the text line, 512-447-3776. And I'm going to update the poll question because I've seen some of them so far, and we're going to read them all, but I do want to update now. I'm going to update the poll question to be who will be the biggest impact player for Texas on defense and offense, because I'm getting a lot of the same answers, and I think you guys are right, but let's say defense and offense. So we'll say who's the biggest impact on defense, who's going to be the biggest impact on offense as well. Hitting up on the text line. First texter says Jay Witt. Jay Witt, I mean, look, if he can come out there and get those underneath passes and just kind of take away, if Oklahoma State wants to take everything else away, we know last year when they played, Jay Witt was open a lot, and they kept throwing to Xavier Worthy, so maybe they'll leave him open again, and Quinn can make him pay this year. Maybe that'll be the case. Nate says, early hello, PD. I appreciate that. And while I'd like to get cute with the player, the impact player has to be Sweat again. Yeah, I think, and this texter says it's a no-brainer, T'Vondre Sweat versus Gordon. I think we're going to get a lot of T'Vondre Sweat. So I'm going to add in, name me your offensive biggest impact player too, or if you said an offensive player, give me your defense. I'm guessing it's going to be T'Vondre Sweat, though. We know what he could do. I can tell you there is going to be some other big impact players because we kind of trust T'Vondre Sweat. Now, he's got to do what he's got to do, right? But we also know T'Vondre Sweat is we think he's going to do that. So maybe it could be an Ethan Burke playing on the side. We heard Jerry Hamilton talking about, the cutbacks that Ollie Gordon does. And maybe it's going to be him. Maybe it's an Anthony Hill or a Jalen Ford just stopping those plays even when the defensive line gets caught. It could be another guy. We don't know. Or it could be, we could say Michael Taft could have another interception. We could get another big Jahdae Barron interception. Something like that could be a big play. Manny Muhammad could make some big plays in this game, too, with Ryan Watts out. They may attack him early if he has the big game. There's a lot of players who could be impact players on that defense as well. Coach Rodney from Rosebud Lot says 48-14. Sweat gonna whip some butt. Stump that run game from the beginning. Hook them. And that Kool-Aid tasting good this week. The Kool-Aid is tasting pretty good. I'm hoping it's tasting good at about 3 o'clock on Saturday, because I'll be drinking that Kool-Aid and it'll be spiked with whatever you can put in it. Vintage Scott says Texas 37, Arena League Stadium Team Dwellers 20. Impact player will be Anthony Hill, linebacker. I like that. Get in there if he can get a pass rush, and if Anthony Hill can get in there and stop the run plays as well, if he can get pressure, not miss tackles in that, he could be a big impact player in this game. Another Ant Hill knocks Bowman out of the game. I don't think you need to knock Bowman out of the game, really. No, I'm not as worried about Bowman, and he maybe go prove us all wrong, but I'm not as worried about him that I think you need to go to another quarterback because, we did that in Oklahoma game, and it didn't do well for us at point. We knocked out Spencer Rattler, and things went downhill from there. Texas says you guys might have announced this, but does anybody know where you can watch the Longhorn game? Since if anyone has that DirecTV or HCD Viewverse, KView is off the air. Get an antenna. If it's off the air, get an antenna. You can watch everything streaming. It'll be everything's online. If you can watch it there, it'll be so it's still free. If you can, I did not know that they had a dispute going right now, but if they do, you can just plug in an antenna, go to channel 24.1. That'll be KView. I believe that's right. 24.1 would be the channel, but you can get an antenna from the store. They sell them at Walmart or Best Buy or whatever, like $10-15. If you got Amazon Prime, you may be able to get one there too. Get that one. Vintage Scott also says, offense, Quinn Ewers. I like that. Quinn Ewers. Chief Engineer, channeling back in. I missed you yesterday, Chief Engineer. You missed our buddy Jacob on the show, but I know you wanted to give him crap. He was on Wednesday. You missed him. Man, Chief Engineer says, Jalen Ford, playing pissed off. Same for Hill. I like that. And 38-17. I like that's a good score. I'm hoping the Texas defense comes out and holds them. I'm hoping they do. And my man Nate says, Baxter for the offensive side, control the clock. I like that. Daydrinker77 says it is Jay Ford and Jalen Ford and Jordan Whittington. A lot of people like that. Love for Jordan Whittington is real in this city. There's a lot of love for that man. That man, I don't think is ever going to have to buy a drink. I don't know. I doubt he even drinks. He'll never have to drink, kombucha ever again if he doesn't want to in this town, because he has a lot of love for Jordan Whittington in this town. All right. We're going to take a break. Text line's still open, 512-447-3776. If you, whatever you guys want to ask questions about, we got some great guys that we can pass those questions on to. I'll try and answer them the best I can, too. If you got questions about the Texas game or the Texas college football playoffs, any of that, Texas basketball, we're going to get to that later. The Cowboys get a win last night, and the defense looks as bad as they've looked all season, but the offense looked really, really good. Dak Prescott still in the MVP conversation. If you got any talk about that, 512-447-3776 is the text line number. You can keep sending it in. We'll keep coming back to it over and over again. And when we come back, we will get back to headed out to Terry Black's Barbecue out there in Dallas. Aaron Hogan is out there right now enjoying some time with his friends from Inside Texas, and Jerry Hamilton was just on. We may get somebody else. Who knows what the next 2 hours of the Sports Complex on a special 3-hour episode of the Sports Complex today, as we're giving you the countdown to the championship kickoff right here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and at hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn, Hour 2 of a special 3-hour countdown to the championship kickoff show. We're going to go back to Aaron Hogan out there at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas, but it is a 512 Friday where we play local music you can go check out around town this weekend. And this is Daniel Fears, really good artist. He has a new EP coming out, and they're celebrating it tonight at Radio East. So you can go check out Daniel Fears Radio East and go check out the new music from Daniel Fears. Really, really good stuff there from Daniel Fears, as you can tell. We're going to keep the party rolling here. Man, Aaron Hogan is out at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas right now, having a good time. I just heard sirens happening, so you know it's a party out there. Aaron, how's their things feeling out there in Dallas right now?
Yeah, you can't beat the natural sound of downtown Dallas, Texas. We were here for Texas OU, and obviously that did not turn out great. Hoping for a better outcome here as the Longhorns lost their only loss of the year. Hoping Terry Black's Barbecue a better luck charm this time as we get it cranked up. But everything's good. Bobby and Jerry are enjoying some of this amazing Terry Black's Barbecue, so we'll hold the fort down until they get through some of these ribs and briskets that they're having for dinner. Highly recommended. And by the way, if you can't make it up here to Terry Black's Barbecue, of course, there is one in Austin on Barton Springs. There's also a great location in Lockhart as you're coming into Lockhart. Terry is open. It's brand new down there. It's awesome. So yourself some TB's Barbecue. Good tailgating food for the game tomorrow. And yeah, thanks to our friends at One Source Gas, too, of Central Texas. My buddy Richard Strever and his team. If you have compressed gas needs for your business, let them be your solution every time. OneSourceGasATX.com. Spell out the word one, by the way. And Hayes City Store and Ice House and Taste on Main, our travel partners up here today and tomorrow. In Dallas today, Patrick, and in Arlington tomorrow at Jay Gilligan's, having a good old time. So, so we're cranking this thing up. I mean, the mood is good. People are confident, but I also am reminded that we're pretty confident for Texas OU. And the Longhorns lost that football game. And, that's the recipe. You look at that game, Patrick, the 2 early turnovers from Quinn Ewers, put Texas in a bit of a hole. The 2-minute defense wasn't great at the end of either half, and in the end, the Longhorn and the goal, the red zone offense was a problem, obviously, in the Texas OU game. Those 4 stops from the 1-yard line stand out, and those are the ways you don't win a football game. Because I've said all week long, Patrick, I feel like this game and the Michigan game, the Big Ten championship game tomorrow night, just feels like the only team that can beat Michigan is Michigan, and I feel like the only team that can beat Texas in this matchup is Texas. Now, Oklahoma State's going to have to force some of those issues, but Texas would have to be their own worst enemy in this game, I think, to lose it. Can they cover the 14 or 15 points, if that's what it is? That doesn't really matter, but to lose the game, it would have to be a lot of mistakes from Texas.
Yeah, and I think what you really look at with Oklahoma State, especially with their recent success, is it's being Texas trying to take care of business by going for it on 4th down. It's Texas trying to take care of business by taking only deep shots and having to punt the ball. It's Texas calling plays to try and push this game out before they need to, and then allowing Oklahoma State to only be down 7 or 14 at the half, and Oklahoma State to play really good second half, which they've been doing all season long. You don't have the momentum. You just have to keep the momentum on your side. I think we all believe that it's going to be more burnt orange than Oklahoma State fans there at Jerry World. So you're going to have the crowd as long as you can keep them in the game. But, that when that's silence and then you hear the lesser crowd cheering, it's not a great feeling. So you want to see Texas just be able to put their foot on the throat on this one. And it's, as I called them, Oklahoma State's the cockroach of the Big 12 this season, or probably college football, that, if you ever kill a cockroach, you spray it and you step on it and then you leave the room to go get the broom and you come back and it's gone. That's Oklahoma State. They're not going to go away. So you have to play this full game. I think Texas Tech, we saw, they got down on themselves, and in that second half, it wasn't necessarily their best effort in the second half. That's not going to be the case in a championship game, and that's not going to be the case for Oklahoma State.
To your point, I thought Major Applewhite killed the cockroach when South Alabama beat Oklahoma State 33-7 in Stillwater this year. Old Texas quarterback there, the OC at South Alabama. But like we talked about, Mike Gundy, being the coach he is, changed the run scheme to fit Ollie Gordon, who had 19 carries after 3 games. And now it's 1,580 rushing yards.
Yeah,
he would have had a 2,000-yard season.
It's funny, Rod and I, Bobby Burton joins us too as well here at Terry Black's Barbecue, and we played the sound of Mike Gundy after that loss to where it was almost sound like a Saturday Night Live skit where he was saying, "No, we're good. I watched the tape. We're going to be okay." The things everything I saw in that game where they got hammered by South Alabama. I mean, obviously at Oklahoma State, this was panic time. He said, no, we're good. I watched the film. We've got the ability to fix this. And, of course, then they lost to Iowa State to start conference play. Then coming out of their bye week is when they changed everything up, Bobby. And it's kind of a similar storyline to what we had with Texas Tech, when Joey McGuire kind of altering the way they do things. That didn't go well because they altered into something that Texas is really good at stopping and playing against.
If I'm not mistaken, that game they came back on, they beat Kansas State at home.
That was a Friday night game.
Yeah, it was a Friday night game, and I remember watching it. I think it was the same weekend as Texas OU, and they came into that and just they didn't beat Kansas State. Like Kansas State made a comedy of errors. I mean, they turned it over here.
Yeah, Will Howard had one of his Will Spill the Pill games.
Yes, good point. And it was just interesting because it looked like a team that was capitalizing on other teams' mistakes and not getting in their own way at the same time, which is totally different than losing 33-7 to South Alabama. And it was just, by the way, 2.5 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
And so it just whatever Mike Gundy does, I mean, magic dust, I don't know what he throws over the field. But and another thing that y'all brought up that I agree with is they don't quit.
No.
They've clearly found a path to victory even in second halves this year. Just it's a solid team, one that Oklahoma State fans I think should be proud of.
Is he the first coach in college football history that benched his son and won Coach of the Year in the same honor in the same year? I mean, he benched his son and won Coach of the Year. I mean, man,
sorry, kid.
I bet that made for some interesting dinners with wifey.
Well, that's the other part. Alan Bowman, Patrick, is we saw him at Texas Tech, and I talked earlier in the week on our show to Craig Flowers, Colonel Craig, who helps out with that Air It Out camp out there in Abilene. David Thomas, a lifetime Longhorn, helps out with that Air It Out camp. That's quarterback receiver camp, and he's known Alan Bowman since he was in the 8th grade, and so he's seen him grow. And he said Alan just about 2 weeks ago called him. And he's now 23 years old. He's got a graduate degree from Michigan, where he transferred and now transferred back. He's a very mature kid. I mean, this is a young guy that won't get rattled. He's not going to be perfect, but this is not a guy you're going to overwhelm in this game. And he's a good player. Texas should be able to get after him, but that's what you're dealing with. And some of that, what you're talking about, they don't quit. They're going to be a mature team. They know they have Ollie Gordon, and that's what Sam Mays told us this morning. Don't let them be within a touchdown in the fourth quarter. You're going to leave your chin open if you do that. Texas should be able to build a lead and handle this thing, but don't let them be hanging around come fourth quarter time.
I just couldn't agree more. I mean that's their MO, right? Is Gundy is one of the best I've ever seen at the last 6 to 8 minutes of a football game.
Yep.
He is just masterful with the clock. At the Big 12 Media Days this year when he came up, one of the things he talked about, Aaron and Jerry and Patrick, he talked about how it used to be I would really look at the last 6 minutes of a game and think about how am I going to run down the clock. Now with this new clock rule, I'm really thinking more about the last 8 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean that's a guy that if you're trying to control the last 6 minutes.
Yep.
And now you're thinking, new clock rule, maybe I can get down to the last 8 minutes and kind of plan things out. That's a guy that does a lot of forethought and puts a lot of forethought into game strategy. It's not just X's and O's at that point.
Yep.
It's more game strategy that he is, in my opinion, very, very good at, as good as anybody that's been there in the last 15, 20 years in the Big 12 for sure.
Yeah, and he's ingrained in his players as well. You're never out of any game. So you have players that believe even if you're down 21, 24 points, they're not out of it at all. And he's trained with that philosophy of, oh, no, we're just worried about the last 8 minutes. So we just got to be in the game in the last 8, and we'll win the game. But it's scary. I mean, if you look, I remember sitting with some friends watching the game last weekend, and when they were down 24-6 at half, I told everybody in the room, the surest bet of your life is that Oklahoma State will cover 10 in the second half. It's the surest bet I can make you is they will come. I don't know if they'll win, but they will cover 10 definitely in the second half.
As a coach, you guys, I think we all appreciate how difficult it is to go into a season thinking one thing, how you're going to play, how you're going to block plays, what you're going to do at quarterback, who's going to be your starting running back. Have a plan and then change the course of that plan, which means not everybody's happy.
Yes.
He's forcing young men to act like men because some guys lost playing time. But then to do it and have success means guys now believe in their coach when maybe they were questioning him after South Alabama in some manner.
Maybe they were questioning him in the offseason when all of his players left.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that questioning started back in the spring when half their roster decided to go to, I don't know, TCU, Washington, et cetera.
And what's interesting about that is Mike Gundy said in his press conference Monday, he said, look, we lost some good players to the portal that didn't fit here, and I think we're a better team for it.
Yeah.
They're not as talented this year as they would have been, but he feels like they have a better football team.
Yeah, Gundy talked at his availability this week about, somebody asked him about this, how they change things during the season, and he talked about every Sunday, he sits with his coaches. He does special teams for about an hour. Then he sits with the offense for 2 hours, and then the defense for 3 hours. And his coaches says the offense doesn't take as long because I'm more aggressive. I'm more of an offensive guy. But he says he sits and talks to all the coaches, and it's a hard conversation of, okay, why are we doing this? Why isn't this scheme working? What are we doing wrong here? And he said the reason that he's got to be able to explain to the players why. Like, why isn't this working? Why are you not having success? And how are we going to fix it, right? That's the important part. I always remind people, Jerry, that your father was a high school football coach. You've been around this your whole life. You have to explain to players, well, it's one thing to drop a pass or make a mistake, but if you're doing it the way they're telling you and it's not working, you got to be able to explain to the players, A, why it's not working, and then B, how are we going to fix that? Because the players want to have success.
No, they do. And the most interesting thing, I had a college coach tell me one time, he said the thing about difference in high school and college, he said, is, look, you obviously have 85 players in college, right, or close to that, 120 on your roster total. But he said, how many of those guys are audio learners? How many of those guys are visual learners? How many of those guys do you have to get to and motivate a different way than 30 other guys? He said, and this coach said, if you can't really read your room as a position coach and as a head coach read your rooms and team, he said, you have issues. And I think he's so spot on. And the one thing about my dad, one thing he can always say is he never had to bench his son because I just played basketball. So he got out free. He got a get out of jail free card.
You did a friendly to him, not playing football. Jerry Hamilton is here. Bobby Burton is here. Here is Terry Black's Barbecue in downtown Dallas on South Main Street. Just saw Travis Tyndall and his wife Tamara walk in from Hayes City Store. They're going to enjoy some of this great barbecue. We'll say hi to them here coming up. They're helping us be up here today. And Patrick, that's the gist, right? The one thing that's for sure, we talk about being connected to your rooms. Sark has really, talked about that a lot. Patrick, how connected this team is and how connected he is to the team. Think about this, Patrick. Sark talked openly this week about how his relationship with the kicker, Bert Auburn. Can you compare that to Tom Herman, who didn't even call a kicker by his name? Wouldn't even call the guy by his name.
I love it. What a great. I'm sorry, but what a great comparison and analogy.
Yeah. You got to remember
between the two people.
You got to remember he came from the coach who kicked his kicker. So this is not just a Tom Herman thing. This is an Ohio State Urban Meyer thing that he got that coming from. But if you look at what he's got the buy-in, and I like one of the things he said this week when he was asked about what's the most improved facet of the Texas game, like what are you most impressed with the improvement? He said special teams, and his point was it's because of player development, because he's got a lot of younger guys on that special teams, and you're actually seeing player development, which we haven't seen at Texas through some different regimes that have been here. So if we know that Texas is now starting to bring these guys up and starting to improve and get them better, that's something that Mike Gundy has had on Texas for years, is his players got better throughout the year, and Texas didn't necessarily get better throughout the year, at least not across the board. But when you look at what, they're getting punt returns back and kick returns back for touchdowns, and you're starting to get those blocks in the right place, and you're starting to get guys to realize where the gunners are, and you're starting to get everything to figure where the players are starting to figure out at that level. The player development, when you talk about having everybody buy in, 4- and 5-star athletes that everyone else thinks everyone's going to transfer because you're not getting playing time. And a lot of these guys are on special teams playing their heart out because they believe in what Sark's saying. It's a definite edge that this Texas team has that they haven't had in years past.
Yes.
I thought one of the cool things in the game in the win over Tech, and I know there's a lot of walk-on kickers, but at Blue Blood programs, a lot of times those guys were scholarship guys coming in. Walk-on kicker, 5 field goals. Walk-on safety block punt.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool for a blue blood school that has a lot of talent. It's going to have 6, 7, 8 guys drafted. Multiple walk-on guys made big plays in that game.
Jett Bush with an interception return for a
There's
touchdown.
another walk-on.
Walk-on.
The good point, Bobby.
Gray shirt. And that's it's a lot of optimism, and that's why this team has been fun to cover. But you have 5 stars achieving at a high level. Playing early, playing to NFL levels, but the development of a 3-star guy like Tavondre Sweat,
Yes.
and then the development of walk-ons.
Yes.
And I know, Jerry, you hear it, Bobby, when you're on the recruiting trail and talking to high school coaches and high school players, that is important. I mean, they want to play for championships and play with good players, but they want to be developed
Yes.
to play at the next level.
No, I think that's number 1 and 1A and 1B. I think 1A is always, do I hear my name called on draft night? The only way that happens is if 1B, if player development's part of it. Because one of the great things Nick Saban's done at Alabama is his 5 stars turn out. I mean, he's developing even the really, really good players. He gets the best talent he has. He's got a higher hit rate on 5 stars than other programs. And that's 1A and 1B for these kids coming out. I know NIL has changed the game a little bit. But, you know, if you ever have TJ Ford on, he's going to say it. He says it to me all the time whenever we get in these conversations as friends. Jerry, number 1 is guys want to hear their name called on draft night, and they're going to go somewhere they think that can happen.
Well, and Nick Saban did this. Kirby Smart's doing it, and I know it's where Sark wants to go. You know, when you start having NFL scouts at your practices,
yes,
because they don't have to go to the games, right? They want to go to the practices. That's the special sauce, because it's like, oh my gosh, then your practices get tougher because there's scouts in the building.
I'll take it a step further. It's not where Steve Sarkisian wants to go. It's where Steve Sarkisian is headed.
Yeah.
Look, you don't have consecutive back-to-back top 5 recruiting classes. They're going to follow that up probably with a top 5 to 7 recruiting class. And frankly, I think they're going to be aggressive in the portal this offseason. And so you add all of that together, and I think you have a special mix today in Austin.
Yeah. What positions do you guys think they're going to be most aggressive in the portal?
Wide receiver.
Absolutely wide receiver.
Tight end. If it's a vertical stretch tight end to go with Gunnar Helm. Jordan Washington's coming in early, but you ideally want some time for him to bake a little bit, keep getting stronger, learning the position. A basketball kid, transition to football. So portal tight end can stretch the field. Safety, I think. Linebacker gets a look at inside backer. And I think defensive tackle, Bobby, and punter.
Yeah, I think defensive tackle is the golden ticket, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be quality wide receivers available.
Yes.
We know that. I mean, there's quality quarterbacks available right now. The portal's going nuts. The question is there going to be a quality defensive tackle available? On top of that, we've got to talk about retention.
Yeah.
Because, look, Trill Carter and Alfred Collins both walked on senior day, right?
Yeah.
Either of those two come back, that's retention is just as good as signing someone new.
Yes.
Or better. I mean, Jordan Whittington and Tavondre Sweat walked last year on
Yes.
senior night and both came back. And we see what's happened with those guys. Because Sark is big on, look, if you may go, do it, you deserve it. You may not, I want you to not get that opportunity if you decide to go something and do something else. So they walked, but that's precautionary. Alfred Collins could come back. And you're right. I mean, Bo Davis has to have as good a reputation on the portal trail and on the recruiting trails you can find. The way we've seen Coburn and Ojimo and now Sweat and Murphy and these guys, Collins, develop. Guys are going to want to come play for those guys who want to hear their name called on draft night.
I think defensive tackle has to be so selective.
Yeah.
Though, because look, the one thing what social media's changed and just covering this stuff is you see, and I don't want to call them prima donnas, but you see more, and I don't want to call them divas, but you see more social media stars at D tackle than I saw a few years ago. Okay. And that's always been reserved for the corners and receivers and running backs, right? But now you see more D tackles. So if you're a guy like Bo Davis who coaches guys really hard, you have to absolutely pick the right guys that are going to handle the work and understand the process and not get caught up in some of the other things. I think that because that position is more important than anyone in that regard to me, because you don't see many offensive linemen like that, right? But I'm seeing more D linemen like that on social media. So you have to really pick the right guys. They're going to put that hand in the dirt and go to work and really care about football and development over everything that comes with football.
Agreed. As far as retention, it's fair to say that Longhorns, win or lose tomorrow, but if they win, they get in the playoff or not. I mean, they could have guys that are leaving ahead of a bowl game or a semifinal game. I mean, that's the nature of the beast right now. And it could be guys names Malik Murphy potentially with the quarterbacks, and you got to get in quick and you got to get a spot. This is going to be a December unlike any other.
I agree, and that's the crazy thing. So let's say Texas wins the game tomorrow, which they're favored to win by 2 touchdowns. And let's say FSU loses to Louisville, which that line's down to pick them, and Texas gets in. They're not going to have the entire roster that they played this game with tomorrow in January. They can't. I mean, I think some kids, if they plan to jump in the portal, may wait until after potential college football playoff game, but some may not be able to. Think about how many guys in certain positions are already saying they're jumping in the portal. Spots are going to go fast. I mean, so it's very competitive to get your spot if you're jumping in the portal. So, Bobby, you're going to have a team. You could have a Texas team that Sunday at 11 potentially could be announced to be in the playoff and have 6 to 8 guys leave off a team in the playoffs. That's where we're at in college football right now.
I would add this. If they're looking to leave and get NIL,
right,
creates a different sense of urgency.
True.
Than just a spot on
True.
the roster.
Yeah.
Ostensibly, most of those players that would be leaving Texas are just looking for a spot on the roster, so the urgency isn't quite as heavy, Jerry.
Right.
But I hear your point. Your point's very well taken. The thing that I would watch as it relates to the portal, Steve Sarkisian is expected to meet with all his players individually over the next week and a half, 2 weeks. He does it every year.
Exit meetings, yep.
Yeah, it's his exit meetings. And so we know some of those start on Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, when they get back to Austin. And so we'll hear, and I think it may be a trickle. I don't think it's going to be this en masse announcement on December 4th.
Right.
Now, there may be 3 or 4 that have already made their decision and are going. But I don't think it's going to be 6, 8, 10 guys out of the chute like that. I think it'll be, we'll wait and see what happens as the week goes on.
Agreed.
All right, Patrick, good stuff. We're live on a Friday afternoon evening at Terry Black's Barbecue here in downtown Dallas, down in the Deep Ellum area, East Dallas downtown. It's a great spot. Dropping temperatures here, man. We're down into the mid-50s. It's going to be a beautiful night and a crisp night for the Pac-12 championship game. Guys, we got to get into that, Patrick, when we come back. I heard some of the Dallas radio guys driving in talking about how no team has ever gone from 7 all the way into the Final Four, but I think we all think if Texas wins and a couple things happen, Texas can make that the first team to do that. We'll talk about why. I think being a conference champion this year is going to matter a lot. The trump card, if Texas wins tomorrow, we'll get into it, Patrick, is Ohio State doesn't have a conference championship, didn't even play for it. Washington, if they lose to Oregon, won't have a conference championship. Texas, when you're looking for that final data point, that 12th win, which gives you a trophy, that's going to be huge for Texas in a potential move up, especially if Florida State loses and Louisville grabs that trophy and they're not in contention for the playoff. That could be the spot the Longhorns are looking for.
I think there's 2 key scenarios here for Texas. One, obviously, is FSU loses. If Texas wins and FSU loses, I think Texas is going to get in. I think the other one is what happens if Alabama beats Georgia.
That's the mess.
Because I think Alabama – I agree with Joel Klatt, what he said earlier this week. Alabama's going to pull Texas in because Texas has the head-to-head win.
Yep.
So FSU in that scenario – it could get left out even if they scrape by tomorrow. If Alabama beats Georgia and FSU wins, the committee's in a really tough spot because how do you leave out Texas as they're the only team that went in the Tuscaloosa in the history of Nick Saban and won by 10?
Yeah, I think and I'd say this for everybody that's comparing old years and previous years. There's never been a year like this where you have 8 teams with a look at it, and like Alabama's 8. If they beat Georgia, they're going to be in.
Yes.
So no one's ever gone that far. And that would knock Georgia out by the same reason I just said.
Yep.
They wouldn't have a conference championship. And how about this scenario if Bama does win? Michigan wins, they're in. Oregon wins, they're in. Texas has to come in if Alabama's coming. Even if Florida State wins, you're going to tell Florida State, sorry, y'all, you have a conference championship, but with your third-string quarterback, we just can't do it.
Well, here's the thought here that I think Texas fans need to realize when Texas is ranked 7. There are 5 Power 5 conferences, right? Hence the term. Well, in 4 of those conference games, there's an undefeated team tomorrow or tonight in the case of Washington and Oregon. Big 12 is the only one that doesn't have an undefeated player going on in these conference championship games. And so I feel like if Texas comes out and takes care of business, it can't be the one caveat with Texas. They can't get lucky on a Hail Mary and win the game.
Right.
Yeah,
It has to be a win. It doesn't matter if it's 10, 14 points. It could be 7. But they have to definitively win the game. It can't be a fluke.
Yeah.
As long as Texas takes care of business that way, I'm telling you, they root for FSU to win. They root for Alabama to win. And I think Texas is playing in the college football playoff. I do not – I mean, by rule, it says 2 things. You have to go off of two things, conference championships and head-to-head. The third thing, which is kind of tangential, is common opponents.
Yes.
Okay, well, there's no head-to-head in any of this except for Alabama, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, right? And then Texas, Alabama for Texas, Oregon, Washington,
Yep.
Michigan, Ohio State.
That's right. That's right. Well, and there is a scenario Longhorn fans should, even if you win convincingly tomorrow, Patrick, that if Florida State, Washington, Michigan, and Georgia all win, and there are 4 undefeateds, Longhorns could finish 5, and just that's a rough. That's bad break.
Yeah,
That's a bad break.
And
I'll tell you
going
what.
back and forth on this.
Let's take a break and come back and continue this conversation on the other side. So we hit this ad break, but we're going to hit the break. We're going to come back with more of this, more college football playoff, because there's a lot more scenarios I want to get into, so I don't want to push it before this break. But let's get into all the scenarios. The guys are out at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas, and we're going to continue the show right after this. You're on the Horn 119 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn. It is a 512 Friday. So we're playing you local musicians, bands from right here in Austin, Texas, that you can go see around town this weekend. And this is the great Ray Prim. He is playing Saturday at Saxon Pub. He is a Florida State fan. Don't hold it against him. He's very upset right now because everybody's rooting against his team tomorrow, but he's going to be playing tomorrow night at Saxon Pub while that game's going on. I know it's going to kill him, but Ray Prim, one of the best in town, always a really fun show to go check out. So Ray Prim, you can check him out tomorrow at the Saxon Pub. As we continue the conversation where we left off, we were talking about the college football playoffs with Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton and Aaron Hogan out there at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas. I didn't want to cut y'all guys off, but I know there's a lot to talk about with the college football playoffs happening. And, we have a point that I liked Chris Fowler said on Rich Eisen right before we came on was not deciding a team's fate based on one or two plays. And he was like, Texas, I don't think is a worse team because Dylan Gabriel threw a touchdown pass at the end of the game, just as I don't think Alabama is a better team because they converted on a 4th and 31 to win the game. When you look at it, and you can look at it one side and say Texas is, a couple of defensive stops away from a undefeated season. I think that should play into it somewhat when you're deciding where this Texas team may end up in the college football playoffs.
It's well said. I agree with Rich Eisen, and I agree with you right then. I mean, Texas is there a couple of mistakes in the Oklahoma game, the goal line stand and their inability to punch it across, and then, the 77 seconds from being the number one team in the country. Yeah. That's why when people say they're 7th, well, they're a play away from being number one because they would be had they won that game and the season played out as it has. And that's the fact. And the fact that they're still behind Oregon right now, everyone has done the numbers. They shouldn't be, and they are. I believe, as I've said, that it's a regionality issue. They want a Pac-12 team in the college football playoff this year. And that makes sense. I mean, it's getting way too regional when it's dominated by Tuscaloosa and Baton Rouge and Clemson, South Carolina, and Athens, Georgia. And, they've got to spread it out a little bit. And I think there's a worthy team in the game that will be played tonight. But in the end, the Longhorns do have a realistic path to be a part of the Final Four, but they have to play well and they have to look the part tomorrow.
And look, sports is all about offense now. The rules are for offense. Look at basketball. Look at football. Everything's about scoring points and offense. And so naturally people drift to that. And I'll tell you the other thing. Rod Babers and I talked about earlier this week, I believe it was. The eyeballs, Deion Sanders in his 4-8 disastrous season at the end with everybody leaving his program, coaches and players. The eyeballs he put on the Pac-12 helped Oregon this year. Without a doubt, it helped Oregon.
Unquestionably.
Perception is, the numbers don't lie about Texas. They should be ahead of Oregon. But yes, right about the time Texas was taking their loss, Oregon laid an absolute beatdown on Colorado, who still was the kind of the it team, and everyone went, "Oh my gosh, Oregon's unbelievable," and that's just been the narrative. And everybody in the Pac-12 is great. They do have some really good quarterbacks in the Pac-12, but they're a little bit oversold right now. But in the end, I don't think it's bad for college football to have a team from the West Coast participate in its tournament.
No, I don't think it is at all. But man, am I the only one that's salty that Deion Sanders is the sports person of the year?
Yes.
Lose 8 of your last 9 games, get Sportsman of the Year.
It's the quintessential jumping the shark, like in the TV moment.
You think Tim Brewster would vote for him as Sportsman of the Year, Bobby?
He jumped out of there, didn't he?
I read about Christian Fourier today, the former NFL tight end, played for Bill McCartney at Colorado, and his son transferred out, and he just was like, "This is ridiculous." Yeah. Like one day you're saying the ATM's not open, and the next day you're saying, "Oh, we need donations so the ATM can be open."
Yeah.
Deion's is talking out of both sides of his mouth. And I think that, I know I get the idea of having a West Coast representative. I don't know that this Oregon team in particular is good for that. But what I will say, though, they add a marquee element because Bo Nix is most likely your Heisman winner.
If he
wins this game tonight, he is your Heisman winner, in my opinion.
Yep.
And so that star adds to the allure of putting them in the college football playoff.
Well, and I did see some sports books, Andrew Sports and the BetMGM with their mock. They have Oregon power rated right there with Georgia and Michigan. So as far as line, I mean, they would be right in there inside a point or two against any of those three. So they have them power rated as the three best teams. We'll see. They'd have to prove that. But that's why you kind of want that. I love the argument. If they beat Washington, avenge their loss, they have a win over the top three team undefeated. That secures their spot, and they get to go show it. They get to go play it, right? Whether they're playing Michigan in the Rose Bowl, which is I think the TV networks would love. I mean, my said all week, I think the ESPN would love to have Michigan playing Oregon in the Rose Bowl, Big Ten versus old Pac-12 and a new Big 12 team, and then Texas and Georgia playing in the Sugar Bowl.
Oh, yeah. Now, that's the dream scenario for the playoff committee. For TV ratings, Oregon moving to the Big Ten, Texas moving to the SEC. I do think that's the dream scenario for the college football playoff and the ratings.
I'd be up for a hurricane at Pat O'Brien's. I don't know about y'all. We could do a live stream
from
there.
the college football national championship game is down at NRG Stadium in Houston.
That's right.
We're going to all stay at Jerry's house.
Oh, boy. That would get me kicked out.
Well, we're coming if they could get there, but that's a long way down the road. First things first, you got to win this game tomorrow, right. Patrick. And Patrick, what's your mood? And give me some of the text on folks. You're talking about your Big Pat poll of the day was the most what is it?
The biggest impact player, and I've changed it now to offense and defense because we got a ton of T'Vondre Sweat, which is not surprising because of Ollie Gordon. We did get some Jalen Fords in there. We got Anthony Hill in there as well defensively. Of course, they love Jay Witt on the text line. They always love Jay Witt, so we got some Jay Witts too. But, I mean, it's interesting to see. I think the mood is pretty good. I don't know if the mood is a blowout win right now on the text line. A lot of the people have it more within that 2-touchdown range, so not a where you're covering the spread by another touchdown or two and getting that 3-4 touchdown win. That really gives you that Oregon-style points that aren't supposed to be the main factor, but apparently are this season.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you look at it, though, the Longhorns are a 2-touchdown favorite, 14-15. The over-under is 55, right, for the total. So I think you're looking at a 35-20 kind of game. I mean, that's kind of what I think, Vegas is looking at. I think that's about right. And if Texas goes out and wins 34-21 or 34-17 and, puts this team away, that's convincing enough. It doesn't have to be 57-7.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
If you tell me right now it's 34-21 and they don't cover, sign me up for that because you could cash a ticket to the college football playoff with that.
You don't want to go with the 2005 score?
The 70-3.
70-3? Come on, that's a good one.
That is a very good one.
The good thing that Joel Klatt played in but doesn't remember.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How would he talk about that game? That would just be PTSD.
He wouldn't remember.
Yeah.
Andrew Kelson remembers him very well with that blame.
I predicted 41-20 on Inside Texas and on Texas football. My thing there is, BYU had success moving the football at points and times against Oklahoma State. And that is one awful offensive team.
Who, BYU?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, they were up 24-6 in that game.
Yes.
Yeah, this is an Oak State team that you can run out of the building, as Central Florida did, if you get rolling on them. Because then you make them play from behind, and they have to abandon Ollie Gordon. It can get one-sided against this group because they can't play chase. They've got to keep you within reach, and kind of like a boxer, you got to get you in the corner and keep upright.
But Bobby said something earlier in the week, too. Oklahoma State's working on 1 day less rest.
Yeah, that's true.
And Ollie Gordon limped around with 34 carries.
Yeah.
And 2 overtimes.
And 2 overtimes. They had to come from behind. They expended a lot. Texas was on cruise control most of the second half after the long kick return to start the second half from Keelan Robinson. And it was 30-7, and that game was over. Everybody was just waiting to see Arch Manning, which we got to do, which was pretty cool. I'd also say another story from a conversation this morning, Quan Cosby. I thought this was revealing on this team. Quan was, of course, in 2008, that heartbreaking year where the Longhorns deserved a better fate. But he was talking about, because this year he did 2 games on the sidelines. Of course, Quan did the sidelines for so long with Craig and Roger. And this year, Will Matthews does them, and he had a baby. So he took a couple Saturdays off. So Quan jumped in, and he did the sidelines. And he said, for as long as he was doing it, none of the players ever came up to him and asked him about anything about when he was playing.
Right.
Like, they didn't ask him about, what was it like when you guys were winning all them damn games back then. And he said the 2 games he did, T'Vondre Sweat, at one point he was talking to the whole D-line. They wanted to know what it was like in the national championship team and the culture and how they what was their attitude going into games. And he said, man, that was awesome that these guys were coming to me because they want to be that way. And he said it was amazing that under Charlie and under Herman that never happened. Within 2 games this year, they all wanted to know, how'd you guys pull that off? What was the mindset?
I love it. I mean, as a guy that grew up Texas like I have, I just love to hear that because you want to know that those guys like Quan Cosby can give back.
Yeah.
Because in 10 years, 15 years, right now Alex Okafor, for example, is coming back and doing more stuff in Austin. He can be a guy. Derek Johnson. Those guys can all be resources for the next generation of Longhorns and carry with them a winning way that they can just keep leaning in on. I mean,
Well,
I
and
just
then
feel
now,
like so
guess what? If you can win this thing tomorrow, wherever happens beyond that, this group can become that for the future.
That's right. Well, look, I mean, Austin Westlake, the best Westlake teams that they've had and Todd Dodge had, Ethan Burke was a part of, Connor Robertson was a part of, and Vosick redshirting and Michael Taff were all a part of those teams. They have 4 guys there, and Michael Taft's grown into his position on the team. Ethan Burke's grown into his position on the team. Connor Robertson came in and played against OU and played really well. But there's enough winners on this team now that have won a lot or played for a lot that have done it together too, or watched each other do it. Look, Quinn lost to that Westlake team in the state championship game with all those guys on that team. So, I mean,
I think that's important. Sark makes that a priority on the recruiting side. We want teams from winning programs, DeSoto, Duncanville, right? The Denton Ryan, and as you say, Westlake, and that's they know how to win.
South Oak Cliff with Manny Muhammad.
South Oak Cliff won 2 state titles. Bill Walton, even though he's not playing, they've got more guys who tasted winning at a high level in the high school ranks, and a lot of those guys grew up together, played together. They've got the right mix right now going on this team and in the program.
All right, he's Jerry Hamilton. He's Bobby Burton. Patrick, more on the text line. I know we got to get to a timeout here, but a lot of great conversations from Terry Black's Barbecue. Do want to thank our friends at One Source Gas of Central Texas, Richard Strever and his team. If you have compressed gas needs, they're your call every single time. And Hayes City Store and Ice House and Taste On Main and Buda, our travel sponsors and partners, getting us up here. And up here means Terry Black's Barbecue for another hour. Also coming up tomorrow will be at Jay Gilligan's there in Arlington, right in old downtown Arlington. We'll be there from 8 to 11 tomorrow morning, bringing you more extended pregame coverage of the Longhorns trip to the Big 12 championship game. Thank you to our partners, Patrick.
Yes, sir. Aaron Hogan out there. And I will bring up, they're bringing the Longhorns back. Happened at basketball, too. If you saw A.J. Abrams, LaMarcus Aldridge, T.J. Ford, Serge Jabari Rice all hanging out last night at the game. It's great to see those guys all getting out and coming out and supporting the team.
And T.J. Ford was over at the volleyball game.
TJ Ford's a Bible. TJ Ford's everywhere. We like to see him coming around. But yeah, we're going to take a break. When we come back, more of the text line 512-447-3776. We will get to your text. Keep sending in your score predictions. Who is going to be the biggest impact player for Texas, offense and defense? Send that in as well. And if you got any takes on the basketball game, Cowboys will get into in hour 3 as well. Send all that in 512-447-3776. We'll come back, get to some text messages, and then in the 6 o'clock, we'll rejoin Aaron Hogan out there at Terry Black's Barbecue right here on the Sports Complex in the Horn, 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn. Getting your text messages, second 512-447-3776. It is a 512 Friday, playing some music from Austin artists that you can go see around town this weekend. This is Dead Love Club. They're playing a show Saturday night at Buck's Backyard. They're going to be playing with the great band Bang. If you like some 80s rock and roll, some 80s metal, Ozzy and Van Halen and all that good stuff and Rats and all that, go check out Bang on Saturday at Buck's Backyard. Dead Love Club going to play some great hits too and some of their stuff. It's going to be a really fun show on Saturday. I may be out there. I don't know. I can't vouch that the Vallejo guys will be out there, but they seem to always show up at Bang shows. So they always seem to be around at Bang shows. You don't know, Bang is Vallejo's 80s metal cover band. So it's going to be a fun show Saturday night at Buck's Backyard. So I may drop by there, especially celebrating a Texas win, especially if, you get FSU does what we need them to do and lose, then, maybe we'll be out there celebrating. Who knows? Who knows what will happen on a Saturday night? Text line's open, 512-447-3776, asking you for score predictions and who do you think will be the biggest impact player, both offense and defense, for Texas on Saturday. We do have some text. My man, hey, it's Luke, the 7th grade Longhorn lover. I appreciate you texting in and listening, Luke. I appreciate that. Offense, Big X, Xavier Worthy, and defense, Tavondre Sweat. All right, and score 33-14 Texas. That's a good score. I like that. I like to score a few more points on them, but I think 14 is a real good number. I like that number a lot. This texter asks, I know Oklahoma State's quarterback isn't a big scrambler, but do we know his 40 time, and what about his backup? My concern is Gundy utilizing the QB to run and move the pocket, which would be out of character for Okie State, but Gundy will exploit our defense's weakness. One weakness, we have problems with mobile quarterbacks. When the offense moves in the pocket, apply crossing patterns over the middle, exploiting our linebackers' ability to cover the pass over the middle. Alan Bowman is not a runner. I'm not worried about him doing that, and his backup is Gundy's kid, Gunnar Gundy. So I'm not as worried about the mobile quarterback thing. I don't think that's a major concern. I think you're more concerned about them getting the ball out quick to screens and other things where you are kind of moving everything really quickly and getting where the attack is at the running that is still at that point. So similar to a mobile quarterback that you're basically taking the ball, making everybody collapse in one place, and then moving the ball outward. But I think that's much more likely. The running quarterback, probably not as likely. Scarlett says, I have a really good feeling Texas is going to run them off the field. I think it's just going to be a dominant all-around team win, and I don't know how it'll be possible, but I want Michigan bad in the first round. I don't think it'll be Michigan. I think it's possible you could have Michigan if Alabama beats Georgia and Florida State loses. There's a lot that could happen in there that could end up with Texas playing Michigan somehow. That's still a possibility, but I don't think that'll happen. I also probably don't want to play Michigan in the first round. To me, they're still the best team in college football. But, it's a Big Ten. You don't really get a lot of tests in the Big Ten. Chief Engineer says, offensive line going to crush, run all over them. I like that. And yes, Dead Love Club. Dead Love Club is a band. They do a lot of 80s covers, and then they have some original stuff too. And then Bang is the 80s metal cover band that is going to be a fun show at Buck's Backyard. It's a bunch of my friends that we're going to have a fun time, and they're old friends. If you ever heard of the band Vallejo in town, the story is that when they were on a label, they got signed and they couldn't play shows as Vallejo, so they made a cover band, and they still show up, and this is their reunion farewell show, I believe is what they're calling this. They don't play very often. They used to play a lot back 20 years ago. They don't play a ton now, so it'll be a fun show. We need Ethan Burke to show up like he did for Bama. I like that one. I like Ethan Burke. We could have a big game as well. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll rejoin Aaron Hogan out there at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas. I know it's getting colder out there, so we're going to frigid Aaron Hogan out at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas. I hope he brought his jacket. Text line still up at 512-447-3776. We'll come back. We'll keep talking some Texas football. We may jump into some of the other games. There's a huge game tonight, Washington and Oregon. Also, Texas basketball was in action last night. We can get into that. Lots to talk about here in Hour 3 of the Sports Complex coming up right after this here on the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Hour 3 here on the Sports Complex, a special countdown to the championship kickoff show. Man, Aaron Hogan out at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas. It's hour 3. We've been going for a little bit, but we're going to keep it rolling because there's more to talk about with Texas and Oklahoma. Also, a reminder, pregame tomorrow, special 3-hour pregame, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Aaron Hogan is going to be down at Jay Gilligan's. They got a shuttle. It's going to be a good time to go check out before the Big 12 championship. Join us there. I believe my man Ty Henderson's going to be here. I think Rod Babers may even call in. We'll have Aaron Hogan down there. We'll have special guests. It's going to be a big party tomorrow morning as well. So 1 more hour today, 3 more hours tomorrow, and getting you ready for the Big 12 championship game on Saturday. Let's rejoin our friends Aaron Hogan out there at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas. How's the weather out there now? Are you feeling good? Are you by the barbecue pit still getting a little heat?
Yeah, I'm going to smell like smoke for a couple days. That's okay. But no, yeah, we're sitting right by the huge pits and smokers here at Terry Black's Barbecue. It's nice and warm, but yeah, we'll be smoky, but it smells wonderful. Yeah, it's crisp. It's about 54, 55 degrees. No clouds here up in Dallas. It was a lovely day. It was really pretty easy drive. More traffic than Hillsboro kind of bunkered down a little bit, but not bad driving up here after the morning show today. But you said it, man. We're, extra coverage and, Big 12 championship game. Got to bring it. Appreciate Patrick doing the extra work and, certainly Rod when he's able to be with us tomorrow, and Ty, and of course our friends Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton from Inside Texas. They're hanging out. It's pretty cool, Patrick, the scene here, because there's all kinds of Longhorn fans who listen to our shows that are up from Austin. We got people who listen to our shows, and the synergy we have with Inside Texas is really strong, and a lot of people who listen to the Horn app also are jumping on Inside Texas and watching all what they're doing with Rod and myself and Jerry and Bobby and everything. And we've met people that are here from Connecticut, doctor from Connecticut who listens all the time, people from Alabama, people from Houston, people from all over who've come to be a part of the Big 12 championship game, and obviously folks from Houston and Dallas and Austin who are up here. So it's a great crowd, great group. Thanks to our partners who make this happen, our friend Richard Strever and the team at One Source Gas. If you have compressed gas needs for your business, especially your beer taps for your bar or restaurant, or a veterinary situation or a doctor's office, and you need those compressed gases and you need them quick and on time and reliable every time, it's One Source Gas of Central Texas. Also our friend Travis Tyndall and his wife Tamara, who are here tonight hanging out with us, just has had some barbecue. They run and own Hay City Store, an ice house in Driftwood, and Taste on Main in charming downtown Buda. I always say, if you haven't been to Taste and you think you got to go downtown in Austin and fight parking and all that to get a great steak and sit in a dark steakhouse, do not have to do that. Go to Taste on Main. It's more of a casual environment with steak and seafood, but casual, especially sit outside on a pretty day in the Treehouse Bar area. Really an awesome spot there that is an addition to Taste to Buda. And by the way, Patrick, this weekend, Buta's having their Buda Christmas. So if you want to get out and see some lights and go to Taste and get a little seasonal mood in, it's opening up this weekend down in Buda, just south of Weird there.
Yeah,
in Buda, Texas,
it's
USA,
a good week
America.
because this is the 11 a.m. Texas game, and you have the rest of your afternoon free to celebrate and go have a good time. You just got to tell the kids to be calm till 3 o'clock. Just let me enjoy the game till 3, and then take them down to Buda.
Yeah, that's right. You can do that, and they have all kinds of festivities going on, gets the Taste, and they've got TVs out there in that Treehouse Bar area, so you can watch the Alabama-Georgia game and really enjoy the season. And I would say this, I do think, and we talked earlier, I think it's really important for Texas that they're playing this first game of the day. This is the 11 a.m. game. They don't know what's going to happen beyond them, right? They can't control anything, but they'll get to sit back and watch it and see where their chips fall. And Steve Sarkisian can, if they win this game and can handle their business, they can, Sark has already said that if we handle it and do what we're supposed to do, I'll get on and I'll go politic for my team. I mean, I don't mind. I mean, I would imagine if they win this game tomorrow, Patrick, you'll see Sark join the halftime shows of CBS. He'll be on the maybe in the booth, checking in with the ACC championship or any of the games, just to sell his team. And I think that's what he should be doing. But they have to win the game first. But Jerry and Bobby, we were talking earlier. Rod Babers talks about when his team in 2001 played for the Big 12 championship, he felt like his team was tight because Mack Brown told them before the game that if we win, the Tennessee had lost and we're going to go play in the Rose Bowl. And he felt like there were some guys including Chris Sims, who kind of played a tight football game that night with the pressure of, man, we could go to the national title game. I like the fact that Texas won't know. That doesn't really matter.
I think I like that they get to set the tone tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's my speech to Sark. I mean, look, my speech 3 weeks ago, I told people was, hey, just bring out the last Big 12 championship trophy and bring out the last national championship trophy if you're Sark, and before the Texas Tech game, and said, You're 1 win away from this. And then you may be 3 wins away from this. And that's all you had to say in that game, right? I think they get to set the tone tomorrow. I really like the opportunity this team has because they've played under pressure this year. They get to apply pressure if they play well tomorrow to Florida State. I like the position Texas is in if they go play. I think you're going to see, Bobby, I'm interested to hear your thought. I think we're going to see the most physical Texas football team we've seen on the field since Alabama tomorrow.
I'm not worried about the physicality, though. This game will be about execution.
Yeah.
If Texas executes, they are a better team than
Correct.
Oklahoma State. This is not Alabama in that regard, where even if you play your best, you might get beat. Texas just has to go out and execute. Now, are they going to do that? This is college football.
Right.
It's there's no automatic. But that's really the thing I'm looking for. You talk about setting a tone. Go down and make first downs. Move the ball. Stop them on third down. Do the things you've been doing all year long, and that's executing just time after time again.
And I love that you said that because the thing that Texas keeps doing with this FAFO thing, right, and F around and figure it out. Sark's going diplomatic on it, but we heard Torrey Becton was playing the all off season was playing the Joey McGuire speech in the locker room, and then the Brett Yormark speech, and that's what a strength and conditioning coach's job is to get the players fired up, and they're wearing the FAFO shirts, and Sark's chanting them out with it. Well, look, you're crushing narratives, right? And the narrative that Texas, if you keep hitting them, they'll break and they're soft. That was true. Let's all be fair. That was true. Gary Patterson was right when he said that and told his team that. Joey McGuire learned that from Gary Patterson, and it worked. This team believes in its culture. That's what they are built on. And so when the offensive lineman at Iowa State poked the bear, they took it personal.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't here when that – well, some of the guys were here when that was the case, but they flipped that. So it's good. And Oklahoma State, one of the reasons I think Mike Gundy is 7-3 in the last 10 is that same reason, that guys will be tougher in the fourth quarter. We'll be tougher.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case anymore, which is what these coaches are finding out, like Iowa State's Matt Campbell and Chris Kleiman and Texas Tech and Joey McGuire and maybe Mike Gundy that, they're plenty physical and they're really good.
Sark talks about this all the time. Texas they bit back.
Yeah.
You get punched. And Sark talks about this in his media availabilities. He's always saying, you can't just sit back and take it. You can't just sit back and take it. You got to deliver some, too.
Yes.
And that kind of encapsulates what he's talking about, if you think about it. Fighting back, biting back.
Yeah.
If somebody comes for your food, no.
Well, and embracing embrace the hate was the phrase, and now it's FAFO. But it's also, John Wick's their movie, right? The John Wick mentality. And he's really connected with his team on that, Jerry. And that's important when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old kids, is to connect on their level and put it in. And this team's bought in, and now they're the ones taking it personal because it's their culture.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like I've been at the north end of Bevo Boulevard twice this year when the team got off the bus. And the one guy I've noticed both times is Ethan Burke for whatever reason. Maybe it's his mom's on the side I'm standing on and he comes over. That is a confident guy. And I just look at him. And, Bobby, we had him on the YouTube channel. And we talked about how, Bobby, when Ethan Burke, after he joined us on Texas Football YouTube channel, how confident he was. Not arrogant, not cocky, but confident in his ability. And he's a physical player. Like, he is, when he came out of high school, people saw, this guy's look at his long arms. He's got upside, man. He's got really good feet. Then you do research, man, this guy was an All-American lacrosse player. But the one thing we never talked about? How physical of a football player he was.
Well, you mentioned that Todd Dodge program. I mean, that was a physical program.
Yep.
It still is, by the way, with Coach Salazar. They play Lake Travis tomorrow in a big game in Pflugerville. Really big game for the Austin area tomorrow. But, yeah, I mean, this team is, to your point, Bobby, it's not about physicality anymore. I think Texas fans understand. I think even last year it wasn't about physicality. It was about fourth quarter execution. And now they've taken that big step. And now can it be fourth quarter execution? It was in all phases against Texas Tech. If they carry that into tomorrow, they're going to be fine.
Great way to put it, Aaron. I would add one thing else about confidence. I'll tell you who's confident. Bert Auburn. Did you see that suit he wore last week? To put that on and wear it down in front of 25,000 people on that walk to the football stadium, you gotta that plus the hair, you got to have a little confidence in yourself.
Well, and I love that Sark said, Jerry, that he was a little bit worried getting off the bus on Friday that maybe they might be a little tight. And he said he saw Bert, and he saw the suit, and he was like, all right, we're good. We're in a good place. If that's how they're – we didn't see when Ryan Sanborn was apparently wearing a funky suit too. The specialists all wore these goofy suits, and all right, we're in a good headspace. These guys are playing loose.
and like,
I love it.
We don't have time to go through the roster, but there's probably 10 guys on this Texas team that have played games in Jerry World before in high school.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this isn't new to those guys.
At least,
maybe more. I mean, you could say South Oak Cliff guys. They've had 2.
Westlake.
Westlake's had multiple. Quinn Ewers. I mean, you just go down the list. There's quite a few guys who have played games here.
Cam Williams.
Cam Williams has played here. Exactly right. I mean, so Chris Ross Wood, but got kicked off. So, I mean, like, there's a number of guys. You could probably start counting that roster. There's probably 12 to 15 guys who have played games here before. And it's the other interesting thing about this game tomorrow is how many DFW guys Oklahoma State has. There's a lot of familiarity with kids. I mean, Ollie Gordon was on youth football teams with a few Texas guys. I'm sure that story will come out at some point. But a lot of these kids grew up together, and they're going at it in the mecca for them. If you grew up in Dallas, this is the Madison Square Garden for these kids, and they're going at it for the Big 12 championship tomorrow. It's actually really cool.
Well, I think who was my friend Mike Craven with Dave Campbell's Texas Football told me that when Steve Sarkisian was hired, there was a game, or whatever the situation was. There was a game being played between players on both of these teams. I don't remember who, but yes, there's a lot of familiarity. Ollie Gordon's for South Grand Prairie,
Euless Trinity.
Euless Trinity,
yep.
I should say. And Euless always has that big offensive line, right?
That's right.
so Ollie's used to getting some big holes punched for him.
I mean, you have Anthony Hill, JT Sanders, Denton, Ryan. They've played here. I can, So I mean, you just go down the list of guys. I mean, these guys are playing in their mecca. This is their Madison Square Garden tomorrow. They're going to have. I mean, the Ewers, I think, will have 20 people here from the sounds of it. I mean,
at least.
Yeah. There's a lot of Dallas families with a lot of extended family that's going to be here tomorrow. I mean, it's an interesting. It's going to be so cool to watch because so many of these guys have played against each other in high school.
And look at Manny Muhammad, who's going to be a big part if Ryan Watts can't stay on the field. If he's injured, Manny Muhammad's played their 2 straight championship games?
Yes.
He's from there. He could be a big part of this game when he shows out if he plays well and shuts down that side of the field.
Yeah, and I love that as Rod Babers broke down this week, the press man coverage they were playing last week. It's something Texas fans have been begging for. Why are we playing so off? Why are we playing so off? We have a good defense, and Tech. Maybe they weren't afraid of the receivers, and I think the Oklahoma State thing would be the same. I'd love to see Terrence Brooks and Manny Muhammad and Ryan Watts up playing some press man on these receivers and letting that pass rush get home.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think that's going to be big, Bobby, and then I think you're going to have to defend the screen game. See, Texas Tech,
you're right.
Texas Tech didn't really hit Texas with that. Kansas State did more tight-end screens. I think you're going to see Gundy go to his screen bag tomorrow. Running back screens, wide receiver screen. He's going to throw it all out there, especially if it looks like his offensive line's getting beaten early in this game.
I'll tell you another team that beat Texas with screens, and really all they did all night with screens was Iowa State.
Yes.
You're right in some ways, Jerry. I think that, what the things that hurt Texas were the tunnel screens.
Yes.
Oklahoma State does not run those as often. They run the delayed screen to Ollie Gordon a lot, where they kind of circles underneath them, and then the offensive linemen get out behind them. It's a unique way to run the screen. The ones that hurt Texas, I think, have been those tunnel screens.
Right.
Where they catch Texas the defensive linemen being ultra aggressive.
Yeah, fast flow.
Yeah, as opposed to those get out in front kind of screens. So they have a screen game. It's just a tad different, right? Yeah. And they don't, other than Brennan Presley, Oklahoma State doesn't have a guy that necessarily is a good, quote-unquote, screen guy as a receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. No, the bigger receiver, they got the
Landon Johnson.
This matchup favors Texas. I don't think there's any doubt.
Right.
That's why if they handle their business, they should be good in this game. Hey, Jerry is in this segment, and before you have to peel out of here from our extended coverage, we appreciate you guys. You guys have been here since 3 o'clock doing a live stream for Inside Texas and that YouTube channel on Texas football. I was mentioning when you guys were chatting, it's so cool to have so many people from all over the country here. The Longhorn brand is so large. I mean, we've met Connecticut, Alabama,
New York,
Kansas City. Guy drove down from Kansas City this morning to go to Texas' final game in the Big 12.
That's awesome. But I wanted to get your thoughts on Texas basketball. I know you did the podcast the other night with Nick Shuley and those guys, DJ Augustine and Royale. What do we think of Texas? They got the game with Marquette on Wednesday. It's a challenging thing. They're trying to figure it out, and they still don't have Dylan Dessou, who's such a big piece of what they want to be. So it's work in progress. Might be a bit of an understatement.
Yeah, I think so. I think against Marquette, they have two guards. Kolek obviously is a lefty, which makes him even tougher. They have two guys who can break down your defense. And that's where Texas, Tyrese Hunter has to have a great game defensively. He's got to stay out of foul trouble against Marquette. They've got to keep those guys out of the middle. If both those guys get to the paint area inside 10 feet, Texas is going to have some issues because it's going to be forced rotation and multiple rotations. That's the first thing. But Marquette is not a great shooting team. I don't think they're as good offensively as they were last year, but it's a different season in college basketball. But guarding the ball and containing the ball is going to be huge for Texas on the road in Milwaukee against Marquette. And the flip side is Texas, while they're trying to find their way, and Frank Haith and Rodney, they're trying to find those combinations. They're starting the big lineup, which is not their best offensive lineup, but it sets a tone defensively. But here's the thing with that game is they have to play fast. I really think they have to play fast. Tyrese Hunter's a better player playing fast. Dylan Mitchell's a better player playing fast. Caden Shedrick is a really good athlete. But the weakness has been for this team thus far while they're trying to find their way too many unforced turnovers.
Yes.
And they cut down on it at the Empire Classic, but they didn't face pressure defensive team. Shaka Smart's going to pressure defense Texas. He's going to see if they're going to hand them the basketball. So Tyrese Hunter has to be really good with the ball. They have to be sound with the basketball. If they're sound with the basketball and then guard the basketball well enough, I think they have a chance to win the game.
Let me ask you this, Jerry. Isn't the overall issue right now part of the Texas team? They're not getting to the free throw line enough because of guard penetration.
They're such a perimeter-oriented team.
Right. Yeah, they got to shoot.
Max Asmus shoots at 90% from the line, but he's not going to get to the line a lot this season for Texas, it doesn't look like, because everything is so perimeter-oriented with him in more of a kick-it-down, inside-out type of scheme. And then Tyrese Hunter, when he gets down, he leaves his feet. He's not in position to get fouled enough, or he turns the ball over when he's about to be fouled. And I.T. Horton, more of a perimeter player, Bobby, so they have to find a way to get downhill more and get to the free throw line, because one of the things, they're only shooting 72% this year, and I think it's because Dylan Mitchell and Zarik Onyim, they're shooting more free throws than guys like Max Asmus. That's an issue.
Yeah, well, and we to the point of work in progress, because they want to get Dylan Dessou back, and we all remember Dylan last year in the run through the Big 12 championship game and into the Elite Eight. He was a beast down low, and they want to be able to do that, which demands a double team, kick it out, Max Asmus, Ethiel Horton, but they don't have Dessou. So to your point, and Patrick, you can weigh in on this too with your basketball expertise. Until Dylan Dessou's back, you probably have to play small and try to play, as Jerry said, play fast, and you got to knock down your threes if you're going to beat good teams.
Yeah, you got to knock down your threes. And I mean, reality of playing smaller, you need Chris Johnson to come along a little bit faster than he's going to be able to, because Kendall Weaver is good, but he offensively is not shooting threes really well, and he becomes a liability a little bit more on the offensive end. So he's great defensively, but, liabilities are problems because you're going to bounce off and he's going to be able to get down and double team onto Shedrick or double team onto Mitchell. The problem they're having a lot with getting to the free throw line, the guards at least, are that Shedrick and Dylan Mitchell can't really spread out the floor too much.
Correct.
Or else everybody gets in there. So, you could have perimeter guys, but if you have two guys that are playing inside, Brock Cunningham is going to pull your guy out, but he's your only big that can pull the guy out. And I think on the other side of the ball, really what you're going to get with Dylan Dessou that's going to be really, really helpful is communication. It's a lot of guys who have not played a lot of games together and in meaningful moments to have that communication on defense of slips and screens and going underneath and going over the top and just knowing when to switch and how you feel confident and switching back and have that confidence. This Texas team doesn't have that yet. And I think Dylan Dessou is going to be a guy that's going to be able to come in. One of the problems you saw last night, Brock Cunningham played only 20 minutes, had 5 fouls, missed most of that first half with foul trouble. If he's not on there to be the communicator, I think a Dylan Dessou gives you another communicator on the court. It's the same thing Texas has with their safeties. You have to have a communicator on the court, or else that defense starts to fall apart when guys start running screens on you.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge. Next Wednesday night will be that next game. Let's also mention for Texas fans who are going to be at this game or watching this football game tomorrow, get out on Sunday. Texas women playing UConn. I know Vic Schaefer would love to see a huge crowd out there. This is a big moment. He thinks this team.
UConn just had a major ACL injury too. They lost one of their best players.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Well, Gino Auriemma, and so Texas is 10. They're off to their best start since 2015. UConn 11. Cowboys have already played. Longhorns will have played. You get out there at 2 o'clock at Moody Center and root on the Horns.
Texas volleyball again as well.
Yeah, Texas volleyball.
That Texas women's
playing
game's
tonight with SMU.
That Texas women's game's on ABC too, right?
Oh wow!
I think it's a national broadcast game too. It is going to be a big time atmosphere, which means they're going to pull out all the stops at the Moody Center to make it seem like it is the best arena in college basketball.
That's cool. Yeah, and I know Vic really feels like this is a team that can go places. He loves Roy Harmon and her toughness, and he's got some size, and it's a good team. He's been building this thing, and UConn's not what they were. I mean, South Carolina and LSU are kind of the standard bearers right now, but they're still UConn, right? And still Gino Auriemma.
Yeah, he's had rough injury luck. I mean, Paige Bucher's ACL. Then I'd have to look up who it is. I think it's their second best player. Just is out for the year now. He's had some rough injury luck in recent years with his actual impact girls that were the difference in going to an Elite Eight or playing for a national championship. So he's had a bit of the injury bug up there, and it just happened to them again. So I think big advantage Texas going into this game.
All right, that's Sunday at 2 o'clock. Patrick, as we wrap up these guys with Inside Texas, they're going to clear out of here. Guys, you like Texas tomorrow, and do we come in on Monday, or you guys jump on Sunday? Will the Longhorns be in the Final Four?
I went 28-13 Texas.
Okay.
I don't know. My question is whether or not Texas is actually going to control the game all game long, or if it's going to be big scores on offense. That's kind of one of my big pieces. As far as being in the national championship hunt, if they win 28-13, I think Texas will, because it looks like Florida State's going with its third string quarterback tomorrow.
Yeah, I went
against a good Louisville team.
Against good Louisville team. I went 41-20 Texas. I think the same reasons without quarterback run game that UCF gave Oklahoma State issues and gave Tech issues, or Texas has going for them 2 weeks in a row. And I do think Texas gets in. I think they have two paths to get in. One is an FSU loss, which is number one. Two is if Alabama beats Georgia. If Alabama beats Georgia, it's going to pull Texas in.
Agreed. So, Patrick, that's what these guys think, and I also like Texas. I'll give you my official pick tomorrow. And remember, college football playoff announcements have come out on Tuesday nights. This will be out on Sunday before NFL football. We'll know where the Longhorns are going, whether it's outside of the top four and going to a big, BCS or a New Year's One bowl game, or if it's in the Final Four before noontime on Sunday. So it's going to come at us fast. And the transfer portal opens on Monday. So safe to say Inside Texas and all the things going on there will be cranking 24/7 as always. And remember, tomorrow during the game, we're going to do our live coverage from Jay Gilligan's tomorrow morning. I'm actually going to broadcast the Inside Texas watch along, Bobby, with you and Jerry and Rod and everybody from Jay Gilligan's. He's got a little back room for me to sit and watch the game. So I'll be hosting that with you guys and can't wait to do it. We've done 12 of these. We're going to do one more, and hopefully it's a championship tomorrow.
Yeah. We love it. We love it.
It's awesome. Well, thanks so much, and thanks to Terry Black. Appreciate Patrick for the extended coverage, and One Source Gas and Hayes City Store and Taste on Main in Buda. Well, we'll be at Jay Gilligan's tomorrow. That's going to wrap up our coverage from Big D Dallas. I got to go get checked into where I'm going to be, and then also maybe watch some football tonight, Washington and Oregon, and then all that's going on. Come on, man.
Is it going to be the coronation of Bo Nix? That's the question.
I know who's watching that game. Boo Corrigan's watching that game.
Boo Corrigan. He's going to talk about Bo Nix's completion percentage as being one of the criteria.
Please send somebody else to talk about the playoffs from the committee. The guy's literally adding nothing.
By the way, add something. By the way, for the game tonight, guys, and Patrick, I keep thinking about the end of that game with Washington State, where Michael Penix had his head inside the cabinet.
Yeah.
People thought he was crying. I wonder if he's hurt, and I wonder why this line is rising like it is, because he just looked distraught. He didn't want to watch the field goal. I don't know if he's injured, and Vegas knows something because that line is up to over 10 now.
Yeah.
And if Michael Penix is playing, I'll take that all day. If he's not and he's not healthy, that could be a problem tonight for the Washington Huskies, who are undefeated and ranked third. Patrick, thanks so much, my friend. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you from Jay Gilligan's in Arlington tomorrow.
Yes, sir. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for joining the show. We're going to keep the show rolling here. Text line still open, 512-447-3776. We're going to roll into the last 30 minutes of the show, but we're keeping you rolling until 7 o'clock here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. It's a 5-1-2 Friday here back on the Sports Complex where we play you local artists that are playing. You can go check out around town this weekend. I just want to keep this playing. This is my man Jay Serrato featuring Terrell Shaheed. I was actually lucky enough to catch up with both those guys recently. Always good to see them. They're playing Sunday at Half Step. You can go check this out if you like the vibe. I just kind of want to just keep it, letting it play. Just enjoying it. It's a nice little vibe on a Friday afternoon. Hopefully you've made it through traffic. If you're driving up to Dallas still, trying to get to Arlington, if you're going up the day early, I hope you're enjoying hanging out with us here on a Friday afternoon. We're almost wrapping up. I'm looking forward to the weekend. It is going to be a really fun time. Texas versus Oklahoma State. We talked about it all show long. I'm just excited for the game. If you did not hear, we're doing the pregame show tomorrow, 8 to 11. I'll be back here. Aaron will be here. I think Rob Babers is going to call in. I know he's probably got a take or two that he hasn't been able to put out because he's been under the weather this week. So he might be calling in. Ty Henderson's going to come in. We're going to make it a big old show to get you ready tomorrow. Get you ready for the Big 12 championship game. Of course, tonight we do kick off the conference championship games with Oregon versus Washington. The line continues to grow in this game. I've not heard anything. Aaron brought up the point. If Michael Penix Jr. is 100%, where is his brain at? Where is his body at? That'll be something to watch for tonight. That game is at 7. You're also going to get some good NBA action tonight. Unfortunately, Victor Wembanyama missing his first game of the season tonight. He will be missing his game against the New Orleans Pelicans. Probably not going to be a great game. New Orleans not been great, but they're okay team. And the Spurs without Wemby on the court when he was playing didn't look great. Devin Vassell is going to be coming off the bench, so maybe not a great game there. You also get Rockets and Lakers this weekend. That is going to be a fun one tomorrow night. Thunder and Mavericks tomorrow is going to be another great game in the NBA. Thunder are playing really good basketball right now. They have SGA. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is playing really well. We know the accusations against Giddey, but he's still playing. Chet Holmgren is playing good basketball, getting better as the days go by against the Mavericks. Luka Doncic out tonight against the Grizzlies, so he's most likely on the back-to-back, not playing the first game. We'll play the second game. Those back-to-backs. Teams are very much fighting back against the NBA. They don't want to play back-to-backs, and I get it. It sucks that your star players are not going to be at one game and they'll be at the other, and the NBA needs to stop booking back-to-backs because they're going to lose this battle. I know Adam Silver really wants it, but just stop booking back-to-back games. Just stop doing it, NBA. I know you're trying to fight it, but all you're doing is costing fans. That I've got some friends that are going to be at the game in New Orleans tonight, and they're upset because they're really looking forward to seeing Wemby, and they're not going to see him tonight. And if they didn't do a back-to-back, he most likely would have played. But you want to put guys in back-to-backs. It's the NBA. It's a stubborn part where they're trying to get the guys to play, and they don't want rest. So what are teams doing now, which is leading up to it, they'll put them on as a questionable, like the game before. And so Luka, it's like, dude, that dude's usage rate is through the roof. So we will see what happens there. Also an interesting game, Warriors-Clippers. The Warriors win the game the other night. I was asked by a buddy of mine, an interesting question. Who's the better team, the Warriors or the Clippers? Tell us on the text line. You got to pick of the Warriors or the Clippers. Who's going to have a better season? It's a hard one to pick now, isn't it? With health, with the injury, with Draymond Green, who knows what he's going to do? You got to pick on that. 512-447-3776. We talked to Aaron Hogan earlier. He mentioned that he talked to Quan Cosby earlier today. I want to play that interview because it is a really good interview. Quan Cosby's got some really good stuff he talks about in there. So I want to play that interview from Quan Cosby talking a little bit more about Texas and Oklahoma State, because why change it up in the last half hour? It's Quan Cosby talking to Aaron Hogan this morning on Hook 'em Up.
Go to the Vaqueros hotline. Anytime there's a big Longhorn game, we got to talk to one of the best, our man Quan Cosby, the lifetime Longhorn. What's up, Quan? How are you, man?
Hey, what's up, baby? And funny story about Madison Skinner. I was in Waco, Texas when her dad was playing at Baylor. He was a pretty good basketball player back in the day. But volleyball team, arguably one of the best shows on the campus, so it's good that they got a win in basketball as well. I'm good, baby.
Yeah, man. Big week. Moody Center will be rocking with UConn and Texas on Sunday, and of course Arlington. What's your plan for the weekend? I know you'll be at the game, Quan, up there on tomorrow morning.
Man, I am packed and ready. I am heading to Dallas at about 9:30, and it is a pretty dang good feeling to be going to Arlington and getting ready for this game. And and really just fired up about the weekend. I know y'all talk about it plenty, but this selection, because I don't call it a playoff because it's not, this selection stuff has never seen what it's seen this year. I'm surprised because it's been around for a while, but I'm happy that we're in the conversation. So, yeah, my plan is to go to Hartzell, L. Tyson, those guys are having a little party tonight at Vince and Selvin, and a lot of us will go to, and then the big game in the morning.
Dang. Speaking of name droppers, maybe you can get me in on that thing there. I'll be up there, Quan. Get me into the L-Type Hartzell party. Sounds pretty good to me. Or go to the TJ Ford party with Nick over here.
Quan can't name drop. He's one of the names.
I know, right?
As a name, you can't name drop.
Oh, yeah, he's Quan. Yeah, no, that's great. No, that's hilarious. I was just giving Nick grief for that. Hey, your thoughts on this team? I know you've done some games on the sidelines this year to filling in for Will. And so you've been up close to them. Obviously, you've watched them all year. I've said all year, they've been frustrating at times and, maddening at times with the blowing the leads and having to survive. But they're a very likable team and a very easy team to root for with the guys and the character on this team, the football character they play with. You've been on the sidelines to see it. What impresses you about this squad?
I think, Sark talks about it all the time. He's been working on so many things, nothing more important than their culture. And by culture, he talks about this togetherness and all those different things. And I think that's what I see, man. The couple of games, of course, I love not doing the sideline. Will does a great job, but the couple of games I did, is the most fun part is post-game and sitting in the locker room, because then you can watch film on who these guys really are. And when I was in TCU, I had a long talk with Sweat about our days. And what's funny is the whole time, other than Malcolm Brown once, the whole time I did the radio and we were going through that transition, none of the players even inquired on, hey, man, what was y'all's locker room like? Hey, what did y'all do right? What did y'all do different? How was it playing against, with Vince, Colt, all of the above? And I do 2 games. In the second one, I'm sitting there talking to the whole D-line about that perspective and the mindset we took into every game. So these guys are different, man. They've grown up a lot. They've been developed with, Bo and Sark and their whole staff. And I think that's what I'm standing. Man, the most complete game, Alabama was close, but nothing more than what you saw versus Tech last week. Every freaking phase just dominated them. And I have a real hate for Tech, so I appreciate it even more. And so, man, that's what I see. They're on a mission. They are trending in the right direction. This is not an excuse, but a couple of those close games, we did have our backup quarterback. Florida State shouldn't be in the playoff, but really, I just like where they are and where they're trending. And I think Gundy's going to do his thing. He always has phenomenal game plans versus us, but I think we just have too much this year.
Yeah, and you played professional sports, Rod, or Quan. You played in the Major League Baseball, the minors, and of course in the NFL after your Texas career. And one of the things you like about this team, and they don't shy away from the idea of creating some energy, right? If you need to take some bulletin board material, the old FAFO thing that they're running with, I kind of like it. It's you keep receipts on things, Quan. I mean, as a competitive athlete, that can be they've rallied around it, and I think they've taken it personal. I think that's a good thing that people taking shots at their culture that they've worked so hard on. I know it's refreshing for Longhorn fans to see it, but you've seen it from the sideline angle. This team takes things personal, and that's a good thing.
That's a great thing. There's two points I'll make on that. One, like Deion started the year taking receipts. Now, unfortunately, Deion's run out of receipts. But really, and the Big 12. The Big 12 are like the Aggies. They make their own jokes, and they give us so much material. Gundy being the coach of the year, come on now. He did do a phenomenal job. Let's be real. He actually did because, to start the way he did, and now he's in the Big 12 championship, he did a phenomenal job. But come on, you got, Texas, the year that they had. If we didn't have a playoff game, Texas is the Big 12 champ. So another kind of slap in the face by the guys in the Big 12. And the second I saw that, I was like, yes, God, thank you, because you just pissed our team off even more by slighting their coach like that. And so there's going to be more than enough reason, and like you said, and receipts and motivation. And I'll say this. There's a time where in the Herman area, it was like he got up for the big games. The beauty in this culture is they're going to be fired up no matter what. what I think these receipts do is help eliminate that third quarter lull that we see. You know, they always come out fired up, okay in the second quarter, third quarter lull, fight and find a way in the fourth quarter. That third quarter, these guys just going to keep chopping at the bit. That's what we saw in Lubbock. I remember watching, not in Lubbock, the game last week. I said, you know what, if we score at least one touchdown in the third quarter, Tech is in trouble. But we scored multiple. And so, really, I think that's what it's going to do. These guys are hungry. They've never even been, most of them have never been a part of something like this. And so there's going to be those jitters that, and I'm happy for them because there's some good guys. Jay Witt coming back, you know, the guys at Ford coming back. I want this for them as bad as anybody. And then I will be screaming at the top of the mountain that we need to be in that playoff if it works out.
He is Quan Cosby, and he'll be in Arlington, I guess he's Metroplex tonight, Arlington tomorrow, as I will be. I'll get you my travel plans coming up so you can come join the party this afternoon and tomorrow morning. Quan, T'Vondre Sweat, you mentioned he and Murph up front. I mean, you've been around Texas football a long time. What kind of season is this guy having? I mean, is this as good as any defensive lineman has ever had at Texas? I mean, where do you rank what T. Sweat has done over the first 12 games of this year?
Man, I tell you, it's so many factors because in today's era, D linemen, they get their love, but you don't see this type of, I mean, I think y'all said it the other day, this type of year. But I played with my man Roy Miller, and he had a hell of a time, you know, especially interior. A lot of guys on the edge, Radko, Jeffco, they all had these level years, but interior, we got the Casey Hamptons that Rod know very well. It was one of those years. It truly is. It's a Casey Hampton, Corey Redding, Sean Rogers, just insanely dominating year that we haven't seen maybe since. And again, I love Roy. I don't know if it was this level of domination because, I mean, Sweat is truly controlling. And of course, Murphy is right there with him. I was looking at a stat of the D linemen playing this week, and you know, Sweat's by far, you know, number one, and Murphy's number 4. And so that's why I like our chances versus the Oklahoma State team. Gundy always very, very honest about things said. They make us one-dimensional, a.k.a. if we can't run the football, we're going to have a tough night. And I think if he watched that film, they're going to struggle with that. And certainly the anchor of that is Sweat, but right next to him is Murphy, who's just balling out as well. And now you have T. Hill and the other guys on the edge landing because of how much attention those guys get from just being dominating all year.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Thanks, Quan. I got a quick question for you. I think a lot of us are kind of looking to the sky for help this weekend on what needs to happen for Texas to get in. Obviously, Texas needs to win, but in your eyes, what are you rooting for this weekend?
Man, that's a good question, Nick. And by the way, Ford is the best, man. I love that guy. He's an ambassador. We need to find something on campus for him to do. But
for real.
This is the thing I want our fans to do. My number one thing for this weekend is for Texas to be the Big 12 champion. And that's it. And by the way, if something doesn't work out in our favor, who gives a hoo-nanny? It worked out in our favor because we're Big 12 champs and we're leaving this conference. We haven't been 12-1 in a very long time. And so that's really, for me, I'm going to be present, and I'm going to enjoy every freaking second going to Dallas today, getting ready for a big – there's a lot of teams not playing today. Ohio State's in the mix, and they're not playing this weekend. And so there's a lot. I'm going to be as present as can be and hope that we win that. And I don't care if we win by 1. It'd be nice if we win by 40. So that's where I am, Nick. I really am. And we'll see how it works out next week if we take care of business. But don't let that be disappointing. I mean, this still is a phenomenal season. We're not there yet, if you're being honest. And I think Sark will say the same thing. We're still, coaches gotten better. We found ways to win. That's all great stuff. But we still have ways to go. We would have our hands full. They would have their hands full versus a Michigan, a Georgia, and all these other teams. But, man, that's me. I'm going to be president as can be. We're in the Big 12 championship. I want to win that. And then I'm going to celebrate the rest of the weekend and see how it all plays itself out.
Man, I love that. I think that's great. I think that's sage advice and great perspective for all of us.
Great perspective, no doubt. Hey, Quan, thanks so much, man. Safe travels up through your hometown of Waco, and I'll be doing the same trip today, and hope to see you up there at some point. And Hook 'em, man. Thanks for the visit this morning.
Hey, heck yeah, man. Hook 'em, gentlemen. Y'all do a phenomenal job, and be safe. go through those small towns, but especially Italy. Those cops need to stay in their town and get off I-35.
No, not a lead foot today. Thank you, Quan. Yeah, Italy. We won't mess around with Italy right there on the way into Waxahachie. All right, brother. There's Quan Cosby with the great perspective. Be present. I like that.
I love that.
Good stuff there from Hook 'em Up with Ian Rob B. And, of course, Quan Cosby. Thanks for calling in. We appreciate that. We're going to take a break. When we come up, we'll wrap up the show here on the Sports Complex on that Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Good show today, everybody. I appreciate all of you joining us on the text line, 512-447-3776. Leave it in your phone. I'll pull it up again tomorrow. Pre-game show, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. I'll be right back here. Aaron Hogan will be at Jay Gilligan's in Arlington. They got a shuttle to the game. If you're going down there, a great place. Maybe get some cheaper food and drinks before you go into Jerry World. Get yourself ready, pumped up, listen to some good pre-game coverage. We're going to do a big show tomorrow, 8 to 11. Check us out on the pre-game show. Thanks to Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, and of course Aaron Hogan for joining us all show long, giving you a big countdown to the championship kickoff show. We'll be back next week too, Monday, 4 p.m. start time, 4 to 6, new time for the Sports Complex. Until then, be kind, be safe, keep your underwear clean, hook 'em horns, and we'll see you right back here on Monday, 4 p.m.